What was that like when you first got there, smelling everything, seeing everything? You've been wanting to go there for several years now. You find yourself boots on the ground. What's going through your head?
So 28 October 1969, at about 3 p.m., I arrive on Firebase Kate. 11:30, all hell broke loose.
Wow.
I'm up, boots on, which never came off again, and there's no ambient light. It's as dark as you could ever possibly think it could be dark. And then boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. And I'm up there, and here they come. And I could actually see them coming down off that hill in a dead run. It rained, fired steel, and we took a lot of casualties.
Wow.
So they had about 5,000 to 6,000 men, and we had about 150.
Wow.
I said, all right, gentlemen, we have three options. One, surrender, and that's never going to happen. Two, to die in place. Or three, we're gonna break out of here. We're gonna attempt to break out, and we're gonna go with three. Mike, we were scared. We were all scared, about as scared as you could ever be, and still move and function. Guys were saying goodbye to each other, saying, "Hey, if you get through this, and I don't," it was that kind of a moment. And I took the mic, and I, Spooky 4-1, Spooky 4-1 Hawk, no response. Spooky 4-1 Hawk, over, no response. And they're coming. I could hear them coming up the hill. So I said, let's go, we gotta go now, let's go. And we stepped off into the night.
You mentioned the napalm attack on your own guys. Can you describe what that does to people?
It doesn't vaporize them, it sets them on fire. And the lucky ones died. The ones that we tried to save, we had those threats of morphine, and that didn't even take the edge off. It was terrible. We were at a very bad point. Morale was terrible. The major thought we were going to be overrun. I can't even believe I did this back then, but the grenade, I always had one grenade in my far back ammo pouch, one grenade that was for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't about to be taken captured.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He was a Green Beret and one of the most decorated veterans of the Vietnam War. He spent 25 plus years as a special agent in the Secret Service, protecting 6 different presidential administrations. Ran executive security operations for the Ford Motor Company. He's the author of the Amazon bestseller, Abandoned in Hell, The Fight for Vietnam's Firebase Kate. He's also the guy that taught Rambo everything he knows and can make Rambo and the Billy Goat puke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Captain Bill Hawk Albracht.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I will say the honor is all mine. To be able to sit down with a guy that has your experience and just the caliber of individual is humbling for sure. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come here.
I'm humbled.
Yeah. What's the last full book that you've read?
Actually, I'm just finishing it now, and it's been out for a while. Term Limits. Vince Flynn.
Yeah.
God, I love that book.
Yeah, awesome. Any big takeaway from it?
Yeah, we need term limits, and we need to clean this doge that's going on now.
Yeah.
Oh, full throttle. Let's do this.
Yeah, I dig it. I'm all behind it. It's almost like it's like a reality show. Every day you wake up and to see
Christmas.
What's next. Yeah. What's something you wish you were better at?
Better at? Oh, probably many things. I suppose I wish I was in better shape than I am.
Yeah.
I'm 76, pushing 77, and the years are catching up.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of mileage too, right?
There is.
Yeah. A lot of wear and tear. If time travel were possible, where and when would you go?
In doing some reading and things, and of course, the military is my first love. I would probably like to be one of Roger's Rangers. I find that fascinating. The father of unconventional warfare. His rules are still used by the SEALs, the Rangers, Special Forces. I just find that a fascinating era, and him to be a fascinating man. Did you know he was like 6'6"?
I didn't know that.
He was a giant.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God, he was huge.
Yeah.
So, if I had to go back, I'd be that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Do you have a favorite quote?
This is my own quote, and I think it's my own, but there's two. For the first one is my favorite one, and I use this in Vietnam, and then I use it, of course, as my career developed, and that's never ask anybody to do anything that you haven't done or wouldn't do, and hold that to the highest standards. And then the second one was in 1967 when I was at Officer Candidate School. We had a seasoned instructor get up and say, I want to tell you everything you need to know about leadership today. Pens out, ready to go. He says there's the three M's of leadership: the mission, the men, and me. Once the mission is accomplished at all costs, take care of the men, because without the men, you could accomplish the mission. And at a distant third, any accolades or promotions that come your way, me. And I have run my entire life on those 3M principles. I've never let anything get in the way. And the mission, take care of the men, and if I did a good job, I'll take that.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. It's such a team-oriented perspective too, which is amazing. EDC wise, everyday carry. Do you carry?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you share what you carry?
I carry a variety. Now I should say a variety, but the Shield, the 9mm Shield Smith & Wesson, the M&P. I really like that weapon. I have Heckler. I have a SIG. I'm very fond of the SIGs. We carried them in Secret Service, but that's my go-to.
Yeah. Any particular ammo or just ball, whatever?
No, not ball.
Yeah. The nasty stuff.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah.
I love the ambiguity in some of the answers. I love it. Morning routine wise, what time do you get up and what's the first 3 hours?
Early riser. Coffee. A constitutional visit to the bathroom, and it usually seems to follow quite. The dogs, I've got 2 golden retrievers. They hey, he's up, let's go. We went out, feed him, do that, and then to the computer to see if there's any emails that I have to do, and go from there.
Yeah.
I exercise later on the day. It's always been my routine. After work, I exercise. I'm not an early morning type of guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Did you have a good luck charm when you were deployed, and if so, do you still have it?
I'm just damn lucky.
Yeah. I mean, did you have anything that you always kept with you?
I had a Car 15, a Colt automatic rifle 15 that I was issued in the Mike Force, and it was a 1965, and it came over then and kind of experimental. And I had that with me almost the entire time, and it never, ever let me down. And, you have Betsy with, from Davy Crockett and all that. This was my Betsy. God, I love that. I tried to figure out every possible way I could smuggle that home, but I didn't want to do any time.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about the Mic Drop Patreon, where you can get the real mic drop experience the way it's meant to be seen. You get completely uncensored, unfiltered, and uncut episodes with nothing held back, just raw, real conversations directly from me to you, without YouTube censorship. Plus, you'll see it days before anyone else, with early premieres and exclusive bonus content that you won't find anywhere else. You get behind-the-scenes access to the show, including pre- and post-show footage, with me and the guest both in studio and on location, depending on what the guest is into and what we have going on. On top of that, we've got tons of Patreon-only perks, mic drop swag, access to exclusive merch, and the chance to submit your questions to be asked at the end of every episode. You'll also get a sneak peek at our upcoming guests, so you'll know who's in the studio weeks before anyone else. We're constantly releasing new features and dropping new content based on what you want to see. For our top tier members, you get the same Mic Drop Challenge coin that all of my guests receive from the upcoming show, which will never ever be for sale. We've got quarterly merch that's sent out directly to you, a monthly Zoom call with me where we talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and an active group chat where we all shoot the shit on a daily basis. All of that for just a few bucks a month to support the show. Right now, we're also offering a 10% discount off an annual subscription, which means that you get more than a free month. I want to say thank you to everyone who has already signed up. Your support means that we get to keep bringing you the content that you love. So if you haven't yet, hit the link in the description or go to patreon.com/micdrop and join the team. I'll see you guys in there. Thank you. when hunting isn't about hunting at all. Team Dog features comprehensive and customizable meal plans with dry and raw food options to meet your dog's unique nutritional needs, including digestive sensitivities, allergies, or selective eating. Did you know combining 75% dry food with 25% raw food delivers robust, nutrient-dense meals for your dog? Be your dog's hero with Team Dog. Where are you originally from?
Rock Island, Illinois, home of the Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
It's right. It's a blue collar town. John Deere is right next door to the home of it. Rock Island Arsenal, First Army's headquartered there now. It's a very, very basic, tough river town, and some great people. And I grew up in that environment.
And what was that environment like growing up? And I'm assuming you were born, late 40s, early 50s?
Yeah, 48.
48.
Yeah.
I guess at that time growing up then, how would you characterize your childhood?
Pretty normal, I think. Pretty normal. We were probably upper lower class or lower middle class. Take your pick.
Yeah.
It's like Lou Notre Dame.
Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz. He goes, we always had enough to eat at our house, because every time I say, hey, Dad, can I have some more food? He said, you've had enough. And so my dad was a John Deere welder, and he provided for us. And my mother didn't work. She didn't drive either. It was the old Ozzie and Harriet type of family. Yeah. So we grew up in that environment, and then, but I couldn't wait to get out.
Yeah. Did you have siblings?
2 older, 2 younger. My older brother, Bob, who I worshipped, he passed here a few years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My older sister is still alive, and my younger brother, Donnie, who's retired from the FBI, but he was a street agent. He was not a politician.
Yeah.
And then my younger sister, who also passed, and she was probably the best person I ever met in my entire life.
Oh, wow. Close, strong family?
Very close, very strong.
Yeah. Were there any like special traditions growing up, whether it was Christmas or anything that was something that was exclusive or specific to your family that you look back on and cherish? We
did celebrate the open presents, and that's a Christmas Eve. Didn't see a lot of that, but that was always our tradition, and then a ham or something like that. And I carry it on to this day with our children.
Yeah. It's funny. So me being from Iowa, both my parents worked for John Deere. My dad for over 40 years, my mom for over 20. And but I remember asking them about Christmas. Same thing, that was a big shift, is that they always opened everything on Christmas Eve.
Might be a German thing.
Yeah, maybe Midwest German influence thing, maybe. Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I played football. My father, old-time German and tough guy. I went to Proker School at the Catholic grade school, and then the shift was to the Catholic high school, Allman Catholic High School. And everybody was going there. My buddies that I grew up with, he said, so you want to go there? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, there's tuition involved. I go, uh-huh. And he goes, well, you better get a job.
So you had to put yourself through high school?
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't that much, but it was more than I had.
Yeah.
So I did, pick tomatoes, do whatever. Then when I got to 16, got a job in a grocery store, and it was a good job and everything. But I had to work, and I couldn't go out for varsity football junior year. Come senior year, yes. Then I had the seniority and adjusted my hours. So I played varsity football as a senior. And I'll tell you, Mike, over my lifetime, I have accumulated different awards, certificates, things of this nature, decorations. When I received my big almond green and white varsity letter A, I framed it, and it's still among my awards and decorations. It was the first thing that I accomplished from beginning to end, and was actually awarded for in my entire life. It literally set my pace. Before that, I wasn't a ne'er-do-well or anything, but I just wasn't focused on anything. And Coach Herm Miskowitz, he was like a father figure to me.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. It seems like it's not that way anymore. I know, letter jackets were a big deal when I was in high school too. I swam, and lettering and swimming, it was a huge deal. And like you don't really hardly even see kids wearing them anymore, let alone really caring about any of that stuff. It seems like it's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know
Which
why.
I think is unfortunate, because I agree. I think it's very influential and motivating, and it sets the stage for, setting goals and achieving them, and things that are a big deal.
Discipline, the regimentation, the training, all the things that followed us into the military,
Yeah.
we learned there, starting.
Yeah.
Plus, I had priests and nuns, which were like drill sergeants.
Yeah. Slapping the knuckles when you get out of line. Was there a catalyst for wanting to join the military, or were you drafted? How did, I guess also, what was your perspective? I mean, this is in the 60s, you graduated, Vietnam is going on.
Oh, heating up like crazy.
Did you have a thought process of, I want to go get involved in that? Or did it make you nervous? Like, what did you think about it at that
Well, we could go back to sports. When I was a kid, we played sandlot, baseball, and football. I was never much for basketball. And I did all that stuff, but we lived by this place called Black Hawk, who was Indian war chief of the Saukkoh, Black Hawk State Park on the Mississippi. And it was a wonderful place. And my preference was play Army.
Yeah.
Get the guys together, divide up teams, and go in there and attack each other, and whatever we had going. That was it, running tactics. And that's where I had the most fun, was the military. And I just knew that I was going to be in the military. Then my older brother, Bob, did join the military, and he was in the Air Force for 4 years as a dog handler, a sentry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he come home, and he says, I got discharged, but I'm joining the Army. I'm going into Special Forces. Now he's about 26 at the time. And my God, he was so incredibly fit. And so he did, and he goes, what do you and Murph do? Joe Murphy, my best friend. He said, what do you guys do? You get ready to graduate? And I said, we're going in the Marines. And he goes, the fuck you are. I said, what? And he goes,
awesome.
You're not going to the Marines. You're going to the Army, Airborne, and I'll see you in Vietnam. And this, my dad and I, we just didn't. So he was everything to me. So I went to Joe. I said, we're not going to be Marines. He said, what are we going to be? I said, we're going to be paratroopers.
Yeah, that's such a classic response, man. I love it. Obviously, so your brother made it straight through, and
yeah, and he was, and he got out, and then he got out. He was in SF with Vietnam. He was in a couple pretty good battles. As a matter of fact, I was in a battle years after at the same exact place.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Did he give you insight into making it through training, or kind of what to expect, or was he like letting you figure it out?
Well, he was pre-mission heading over in 1967. I'm just out of Australian school, so I get there as a brand new second lieutenant, newly minted, and we got to spend some time together. I went through the Special Force, was in the SF Officer Course, and he was pre-mission and out there, and he took me out his buddies, and they were just kind of like, absorb it, learn. There's going to be experience, and for God's sakes, listen to your senior NCOs.
Yeah, that's I would say of the most sage advice that a young officer could get and listen to.
I think so.
Yeah. So you went to college first?
No.
Oh, okay. So
Right out of high school. Well, what happened is, as I joined up, Murph and I joined up. We went into basic training, and this is okay. So I'm going to be a paratrooper. I'm going to go infantry, and I know this is all plotted out for me. I signed up for me. I got to tell you about signing up. We went down to see the recruiter, the Army recruiter, and he goes, "How can I help you guys?" Well, we were getting ready to graduate from high school, and we want to join. He said, "Oh, where do you want to be?" Now Vietnam. See, then he goes. I said, we want to be airborne infantry and go to Vietnam. And he looked at us like we had two heads each. And he goes, after he questioned us to make sure he wasn't being set up those cameras anywhere, he goes, well, this is your lucky day. Well, I happen to have two here now. They'll be gone, and I don't know when I'm going to get any more back. Oh, we got to sign. So we sign. So we get in down there, and of course they test in 1966. They were testing everybody came in. And by God, I was a C student, maybe a C plus student in high school. And by God, the nuns and priests at Almond Catholic High School were correct. I was not applying myself. So they kept taking. They said, sergeant goes up and, you're like, you're going to take this test too, both of you guys, Murphy and I. And I said, what is it? He is OCS, take it. Mike, hand to God, OCS could have been Oklahoma Cook School to me. I had no earthly idea what it was. I never had heard of it or anything. So I thought all the Army officers came from West Point. That's all I knew. So I took it, and you had to have 115, never forget this, a minimum score to pass. And I got 115. So the captain called us all in. There was like 220 of us in basic in our company. And he had about 20 of us in there. And he goes, gentlemen, and everybody was older than me. I'm just 18. He says, everybody here has been qualified to go in the officer caddy school. And better now, pick a branch, infantry, armor. Don't get exotic. Keep it in combat arms. And I'm sitting in the back and I'm thinking, shit, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for this. So, yes, private. Sir, what if you don't want to go to OCS? I have a levy of 20 that I need to turn out of this company. I have 20 here in front of me that are qualified to go. You are going to OCS. Any more question? No, sir.
Yeah. Man, it's hard, I guess, having gone through boot camp, it's been a while now, but still thinking of it back then and the kind of environment. I find myself, I guess, wondering if there's a way to even kind of describe the difference of what it was like back then to especially now. Obviously, you didn't go through boot camp again, in the last 5 years, but from what you know and kind of, if there's a way to encapsulate what boot camp was like back then by comparison, can you draw any comparisons that way?
Well, it wasn't that hard. I'm sorry, it just wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't that hard. You got yelled at a lot, but we had a significant amount of racial problems.
Really?
Yes,
Like,
yes, we did.
How so?
There was a lot of black and white issues, and we had a lot of blacks coming out of Chicago. And one of these things the judge says, go to jail, go to the Army, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they brought a culture with them down there and it permeated throughout. And the white guys, well, hell, we didn't know each other that much at all. And we had some real not significant riots or anything of that nature, but there was an edge about it.
Yeah.
And but we learned to march, we learned to drill, we learned to shoot, we learned all the basic things of basic training. But I'll never forget that. It just put a damper on everything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's something I don't think, especially nowadays, there's, I think that's pretty non-existent in the military.
Probably.
I mean, I know when I was going through in the 90s, there was none of that. Like, there were no issues racially or otherwise. Like, all of us got along. I mean, there were guys that, would get into it with each other over something stupid, but it was that. There was no undertone of any type of, racial division or anything.
I never saw it again, by the way.
Yeah.
I never really was
just boot camp
again, but there,
yeah,
I did.
Interesting. All right, so you get voluntold to go through OCS. You go through, and then did you go right into Special Forces selection afterwards, or how does that work?
So I turned 19 the middle of August 1967. I was commissioned the end of August 1967. Wow. I know. It's quick. Amazing.
So as a 19-year-old officer.
19-year-old second lieutenant.
Wow.
And but the good news is I always looked older. I was a kid in high school, had to buy the beer, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of catching up with me now. But so I had volunteered for Special Forces. My brother was there. And by God, they took me.
Wow.
And there was no age. You had to be at least 20 years old to volunteer as enlisted. Well, there was no age requirement for officers. So I went to jump school, went to parachute school right after, and then right to Fort Bragg. My two buddies went home to New York. I said, no, I want to go to Bragg. I walked in, they had this thing called, Special Forces Officers Course. It's like 4 months. I think about 4 months. Anyway, it was hard to get into. They only had 4 a year, and it would only have maybe 150, 200 maximum. And there was a lot. It was a waiting list to get into this. And when I was reporting in Sunday night, and I was signing myself in, and this major come out. He goes, "Lieutenant, you just signed?" "Yes, sir. I reported to the third group." And he goes, "How'd you like to go to the Special Forces Officers course Monday?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "We just had a dropout, and I got to fill it now. This is your," and I did. Wow. Now, my life has been like that.
Right place, right time.
It's like I'm kind of sort of being vectored in a different area. Many times things have happened to me that I can't say I had no control of, but I was fortunate.
Your smartphone relies on the grid, but when the power goes out or the internet crashes, it's useless. Sea Crane's CC Skywave SSB2 gives you access to critical communications your phone can't. That includes emergency single sideband transmissions used in disasters, both natural and man-made. You're never left in the dark. Sea Crane was kind enough to send me my own CC Skywave SSB2 to try out, and it's been rock solid. It's got crystal clear reception, a compact form factor to fit in any go bag, clock, alarm, headphone jack, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and it's an American-based company to boot. When normal communication fails, radio is survival. The CC Skywave SSB2 is built for that moment. It's compact, powerful, crystal clear, pulls in the most signals most radios can't touch. Whether it's AM, FM, weather alerts, or worldwide ham operators, you can stay informed because in a crisis, knowledge is power. This isn't just a radio, it's your lifeline, and Sea Crane has the performance that matters. To order the CC Skywave SSB2, call Sea Crane's US-based customer service at 800-522-8863 or visit seacrane.com-drop. That's Seacrane, CCRANE.com/drop, and use the code DROP, all caps, all one word, at the checkout for 10% off all orders over $75. Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of everybody's, he's kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just, caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or die electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bubs Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. biggest thing is Bubs is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. I mean, to me, there's a recurring theme, though, of you stepping up in all of those cases, too.
True.
Which I think a lot of people can't say that. I am curious, the overall kind of perspective, the American perspective, was there a pivotal shift from your recollection of when support of the war and the understanding of American society in relation to the Vietnam War, where you saw that shift of being supportive to not supportive, or was it kind of always a mixed bag? Like, what was the overall feel?
It really started to shift significantly summer of '68. Bobby Kennedy was killed, and that was I remember that because that happened not real long before I shipped out my first assignment, which wasn't Vietnam, it was actually Thailand. And then things just started getting worse, and I came home on leave before I went to Vietnam, and the world had changed.
Yeah.
And then I came over to Vietnam, I hardly knew what the world was anymore. Wow. Everything had changed.
Like, did you experience a lot of the getting spit on and yelled at and that?
Oh, no, you know better than that.
I guess just...
I have no arrest record, so you know that did.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was... They were telling guys in Oakland, not for nothing, but yeah, you might want to change your civilian clothes. And you hear the stories of guys, I took my uniform, stuffed them in the trash. I wore mine home. I wore it right through Chicago. I had my beret, my boots, my uniform, and nobody really said anything. And some people bought me a couple of beers while I was in between flights.
That's awesome. You hear about that. Obviously, I wasn't around.
There are guys. I know one guy said, "As God is my witness, somebody spit on me, and when I couldn't get to them because they disappeared in the crowd." Yeah, they were out there. They were absolutely out there.
Do you think it's overblown? Like it's more represented than was actually taking place?
It's the urban legends, like some of the things when you were deployed. Yeah. I remember this one that I heard when I got to Vietnam. It happened, absolutely. They captured this VC, two of them, and they wanted to know where the base camp was. And then, no, we won't tell. And they took him and put him in a helicopter and flew around the area, and they no, we won't tell. So they threw one out. The other guy, hey, no. Well, I heard that, and of course I believed the first time I heard it. Then I heard it about 6 or 7 more times. So I think this is a situation where may or may not have been based on truth. It might have been just somebody having a good time. Yeah. A lot of the stories that you hear, I think happened, but maybe not in the exaggerated form that they did. Some did.
Yeah.
Some men were absolutely humiliated when they came home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's heartbreaking and is infuriating,
Yeah.
So going back to, you get immediately selected as a 19-year-old first lieutenant. You go right into Special Forces selection.
Second lieutenant first. Right.
What was kind of for you, the experience going through Special Forces selection? Boot camp was easy. Was expectation versus reality kind of what you thought it was going to be versus what it was? How did that stack up?
Well, Officer Candidate School was physically demanding. Yeah. And mentally they were trying to put you in such a stressful situation that if you had that weak link in you, that you would crumble, snap, fall, and they would go, we don't want this guy leading troops in combat, especially infantry. So I was, I had that mental toughness in me. Physically, by God, we ran everywhere. We ran PT for 6 months. Yeah. Jump school, more PT. Okay, so I got to the Special Forces. I was 19 and in prime shape. And it was tough. It wasn't the kind that would break your soul tough, but they expected you to endure and be strong, go without sleep, and all the things that go along with that. But I'd say the thing that got me was the mental capacity that was involved. The cerebral part of the Special Forces training was staggering. Now, again, C+ student in high school. This, I spent a lot of time studying. I didn't graduate at the bottom of the class, but I could see it for where I was at.
Do you remember how many candidates started versus finished?
We lost probably 20%.
Yeah.
Because all of them were pretty well met. One individual, I'll never forget this, he was brilliant. And every test we took, and I'm telling you what, there was, the C-130 is coming in at so many knots, the wind is blowing at so many miles per hour, it has 7 door bundles, they each weigh this, they're this size, you're on the ground, how big's the LZ got to be? Oh, right? And he could just listen to it, tell you. He was brilliant, but when he went to the field, he was one of these guys couldn't find his ass with both hands on a flashlight. He just continually screwed up.
Yeah.
And he was mentored. And the day before we graduated, they called him in the office, and he came back out, and they said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I've been washed out, and I'm heading down to the 82nd Airborne."
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. Seems like a rough way to go out, but
you wouldn't want to be out in the field with him.
yeah. Well, so speaking of that, I guess I don't know if you've kept in touch with or kind of kept track as to how Special Forces selection runs now, or how similar it is, or how different. Curious about that, but I'm also curious. Did you find that the selection training for Special Forces at that time adequately prepared you for going to Vietnam and being a Green Beret there?
It was all about Vietnam. It really was. It was all about Vietnam. Now, they told us the Special Forces' main mission is get behind enemy lines, organize the partisans and the revolution. Like, I don't know this to be a fact, but I suppose right now they may be in Taiwan in organizing when China invades to start the front that's going to push them back out again.
Yeah.
And that is our mission, unconventional warfare and so on, which I did. Unconventional warfare, more conventional in Vietnam. But what they're training them for now is, I think, is better. They're trained better than we were.
Yeah.
Because when we were there, they would train. Okay, boom, Vietnam. Next group, train. Okay, Vietnam. And so the guys were you knew where you were going. It was a fluke that I didn't go there my first assignment.
Yeah.
So I think now it's tougher. Tougher in that they have to have more to go through, and they're better for it.
Yeah.
That's my just opinion.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it should be, right? I think training curriculums and selection tests should improve and continue to grow and make a better
lessons learned
candidate. Yeah. So your first, I guess before we get into your first station after selection training, do you have a most memorable moment from Green Beret selection during the 60s?
That I made it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a dream. My brother was in Special Forces, and I was a little brother, and now not only I am Special Forces trained in Guadalupe, but I outrank him.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's awesome. All right, so you graduate to your own surprise or pleasant surprise, I guess.
I was
you were focused.
vectored in on that.
You're ready to go. So what happened next?
Your first year or several months are at Fort Bragg. You're part of a training team, or whatever. You're assigned to an A team, maybe a B team, and you do administration, or you're an executive officer on a team. Half of which are guys that haven't been deployed yet. Half of which are guys that have been. So you really get to learn from them. And then after that time, during the summer, as I got there in the summer, orders came down, and I'm going to the 46th Special Forces Company in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
I know. I was like, what? How is this possible? But in the old timers were going, oh, it is one of the best assignments you could ever get in your entire life. And I got to tell you, it was.
Yeah. What made it that way?
It was in Thailand.
Well, I've been there, so I guess enough said. Yeah.
Well, the thing was that I did my year, and of course, as an commissioned officer, for most CS, you had to do 2 years, and then they put you in a reserve group.
Yeah.
So I did my 2 years, and I thought, I haven't done what I joined to do. To go, our country is in need of trained men to go to Vietnam to fight this war, and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So I went and saw the S1, and it was this major, and I said, sir, I'll extend, and you could do that. You extend 1 more year. I said, but only if I can go to the Special Forces of Vietnam. And he goes, well, this is your lucky day. I've heard
I got
that
one
before.
spot left.
Yeah. So I did, and I did.
Yeah.
And then I made captain too.
Yeah. When you were in that kind of pre-deployment, half seasoned guys, half new guys, was there hazing or any of that kind of like, hey, new meat?
No, not at all.
Kind of stuff. It was more just we need to get these guys as sharp as we can.
Get them trained, yeah.
It's interesting how that works, and I think the height of hazing and the new guy treatment is at its worst when those guys are bored and nothing's going on. It's like they turn peacetime into an internal war amongst each other with the new guys almost. Because when I first came in, it was pre 9/11. I was in for 5 years before 9/11, and then 7 years afterwards. And like the hazing and initiation stuff when I first came in was fucking brutal. And after,
I've heard stories.
Yeah, and after 9/11 and subsequent years, like it got to where it's almost non-existent. And I think for that same reason, it's like where we're going is going to give you more than enough test as to, who's who and going to initiate you and bring you into the fold better than we ever could by, hazing you and, dumping Tabasco on your balls and beating you up and taping you up and all that.
I just think those types of harassment or hazing, when you do that kind of thing, it should have some type of a purpose.
Yeah.
And I really believe it should have some type of purpose, even if it's a low-grade purpose, but something other than just being cruel to somebody for no reason.
Yeah.
If you're going to stress them out and see how they react under stress and, they really put you in a Foot Locker and beat on it with a baseball bat, okay, I'm sure that it could be artillery coming in, right?
Yeah.
But just to be a bully, no.
Yeah.
I don't buy
Yeah.
it.
Some guys took it way too far. Other guys would similarly, I think, see the value, which I tend to also. I think it absolutely has a time and a place. And I get the initial, like, welcome to the club kind of in jest, not super serious, but maybe tape them up and, knock them around a little bit and make fun of them, just kind of a welcome to the club kind of thing. We used it primarily as a remedial tool. Like if somebody messed up bad, then we would kind of circle them, and it was like getting thrown into the lion's den a little bit. And that was very effective, though.
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah. I agree with you on
So I just was talking to somebody, oh gosh, and he was a paratrooper, and he got the SF. He says initially, but it was light hazing. They said, oh, hey, new guy, go over to Pope Air Force Base and get the keys to the drop zone.
That's awesome. It's like the construction stuff, get the metric crescent wrench and the board stretcher.
Yes.
I love it. All right, so once you do finally get to, you make captain and now you're going to Vietnam.
I made it in Vietnam. I got there middle of August 69, turned 21, promoted captain end of August 69. So now I'm a new captain.
What was that like when you first got there, smelling everything, seeing everything? You've been wanting to go there for several years now. You find yourself boots on the ground. What's going through your head?
I'm home.
Yeah.
This is. I mean, I'm not a warmonger or anything, and I don't enjoy killing people or any of that kind of stuff. But this is where I was meant to be. This is where I have trained for 3 years to be here to do this job that I think I am pretty darn going to be pretty darn good at, and I may be taking somebody's place who would have came here and maybe would have got hurt bad, but I'm here. I felt like this is, in my world, I am exactly where I need to be.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the best attitude to have, and that's the kind of guy I would want in that position.
Yeah.
You're the youngest captain to command troops in Vietnam. Was there any? Who is this guy? He's 21 years old.
Oh no, I kept that buried.
Yeah, nobody knew.
No, my SF sergeant had no idea.
Did you not look young?
No. I looked. I had the stash going, according to the porn star stash, and I looked not 21. I looked like maybe 23, 24. And they'd say, "Hey, hey, wait, Vietnamese. What were you doing before you came in? Oh yeah, working construction, a little this that. Oh, and very."
Generic.
They had no earthly idea I was as young as. One time I was there, and they said, I was talking to my team sergeant. At this time, it was Bill Trussell Buddha. Shaved head before anybody shaved their head, and massive. And what a tremendous soldier this guy was. He goes, "Hey, Tai Wei, we got this new lieutenant in. This guy, Kier Vioto. He's 23. They're sending us kids now." And I said, "Oh shit."
And isn't that something?
Yeah. How old are you anyway? I go, "Oh,
doesn't matter." That's priceless. Do you remember the first real world mission you went on in Vietnam?
Oh yeah.
Can you walk us through that?
In two corps, which Vietnam was divided into corps. I Corps was up with the DMZ in North Vietnam and Laos. And then it came down and still in Laos. And then I don't know how they did it, but there was a demarcation line. Well, a line. And then you get into two corps. Now you're actually in kind of mountainous area up in the I Corps. And when you get a two corps, you got mountains too, but they call them Central Highlands. And that ran all the way down to three corps, which was now, you're in Cambodia is right there. So two corps, Laos and Cambodia. And then it goes down into the Delta and the water and all that. But the Central Highlands of Vietnam, two corps, was just gorgeous, just stunningly gorgeous area. And indigenous to them, and this is an integral part of Special Forces, was the Montagnards, so named by the French when they fought the Indochina War. And by the way, have you ever read that book, Bernard Fall, Street Without Joy?
I haven't.
Oh my God, if you think the French didn't fight over there, they're the first ones who went in there, and the Montagnards would be the equivalent of American Indians. They were kind of Iron Age. They had loincloths, women were bare-breasted. They lived in thatched hooches, some raised, and they farmed and they gathered and they killed things with their crossbows. And then after several years, after the few years, the area would be played out, the ground, they'd burn it, and then they'd move off to another area. And so they were semi-nomadic, and they were hated by the Vietnamese call them savages. They were just savages. They had absolutely no use. They couldn't vote. They had absolutely no rights, and they were clannish people. They were tribal people.
We're kind of akin to Aborigines in Australia.
Kind of akin to Aborigines. That's and when I talk, I say American Indians because people know what that is. But yeah, akin to them. They were more Polynesian, I think, looking than Asian. They were kind of a mix of them. And 1,000 years ago, they were down in the lowlands. And then the Chinese came down, and pushed them all up into the Central Highlands, but nobody cared about them.
Yeah.
So they lived up there. And they were the Montagnards, so named by the mountain people, by the French. And they started developing somewhat. When we came in, Special Forces came in, we went in and recruited them. Train, equip, advise. Well, we trained, equipped, advised, and then we led them. And they were wonderful, wonderful people. They were fierce fighters, and they were extremely loyal to the Americans, and they hated the Vietnamese. North and South, they didn't care. They hated them all. The North would come down through their villages, maybe take some of their young men to carry things up and down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, take whatever livestock they wanted, rice and have their way, and then move on. So there was no love lost there. So I'm in the Central Highlands at this camp called Bu Prang, which was in the southernmost part of the Central Highlands. And there was just areas there were big, they call them mountains, we call them big ass hills. Okay. And so there was those big ass hill mountains and these rolling meadows with thigh-high grass, and then up would go to thigh-high grass with dense vegetation. It's extremely dense, triple canopy down in the lower levels because it was so fertile. So my first assignment when I got to Bu Prang was assigned there. I asked to go to the Mike Force. Then the Mike Force is the Mobile Strike Force, Special Operations. They are, there was up in 2 Corps, there was 4 battalions. Each battalion had about 400 to 450 mountain yards. Now these were beyond the mountain yards that were in the Special Forces camps. They were all airborne. Wow. And they were all highly trained, and they were fierce fighters and very well paid by it, very well paid. The mountain yards that were in the A camps that dotted along the border, they were trained too, and they were very good, but they had their families there and everything. These guys, I wouldn't call them mercenaries, but they were very good at what they did. Yeah. And each battalion was run by an A team of 12 Americans, usually about 6 because of shortages. And their job was to be inserted in when in one of the A camps came under intense fire, or any SF got in trouble. That was our first go-to. We didn't rely on the Vietnamese, we didn't rely on the Americans. You called in the Mike Force. Like I said, special ops, there, and then of course, the SOG units that were, I think when you talked to Colonel Wall here, he was talking about the SOG units.
Yeah.
And that was special ops too. And then there's other projects that go on. So my first assignment at Bu Prang, I was a junior captain, so I was executive officer. And I had a real good senior officer, Nick Palmer. He was seasoned, and he was very good and a good mentor to me. Well, around Bu Prang, we knew that the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, was coming down from the north. The summer, the monsoons come, everything's wet, rained, your sandbags get dilapidated, your mud and everywhere. So in the dry season starts coming, September, October, you have to rebuild. So we're in the process of rebuilding the camp of Bu Prang, which was pretty darn big, and we had concrete this and really heavily fortified that. We had some 105s there and some 50 calibers. We were well defended. Maybe 300-400 mountain yards. Plus we had the American team there, and plus the mountain yard families. So that was like a cavalry outpost, so to speak. Well, around it were 3 fire bases, 1, 2, 3, mutually supporting each other. Annie, Kate, and Susan. That's a whole other story. So they would, when they knew, the intelligence said they're coming down from the north, they're going to cross into from Cambodia, they're going to hit Bu Prang, knock it out, and then go into Ban My Thuột, which was the provincial capital, knock it out, and then march to the sea, cut Vietnam in half. And in 75, part of that actually happened. So we know what's going to happen, so everybody's getting all ready for it, and I'm working with the yards, and we're filling sandbags and doing this, and the colonel comes from the B team, and he goes, I was in charge of intelligence, so I give him the intelligence of what's going on. Obviously, we didn't have the capabilities we have today. And he goes, good, okay, good briefing, Captain. Oh, by the way, pack your shit, you're going out to Firebase Kate. We provide security there. We have platoons from different A camps there, and we want a captain and a sergeant there to run security, because those cannon cockers, there was like 27 artillery guys there, 3 tubes. They can't shoot them and defend themselves, so we provide security. Well, I knew that. But I said, but sir, there's nothing going on out there. 0. And we're going to get hit here. And I need to be here. I need to be here working with my men, retraining them, all that. He goes, take the next chopper out. Yes, sir. So 28 October, 1969, at about 3 p.m., I arrived on Firebase Kate. We got hit that night.
Wow. And a lot of the book is centered around that. Can you walk us through kind of the initial attack and how you guys responded, and kind of walk us through that whole thing?
Yeah, I can highlight it in that. So I got there, and the captain that I relieved, Barnum, he jumps on the hill. Hey, see you later, boom, out of there. But Danny Pirelli, and God rest his soul, he just passed here in the last couple of days. He was a buck sergeant, and a finer SF trooper you'd never find. He was consummate. He got there, and I jumped off, and I got my rucksack and copper leaves. I said, "Hey, sir," I said, "Yeah, okay, Danny, Bill, what's going on?" He goes, "I just got here yesterday. We may want to do a walkabout." So I dropped my gear in our little hooch, our little bunkered up hooch with sandbags and all that, and we did a walk around of Kate. It was a little bit smaller than a football field, and first thing I noticed when I got there was the Americans were playing volleyball, and some of the yards were playing volleyball with them, or they were playing cards, or they were sunning themselves. The yards weren't doing much anything around the perimeter. So we went around the perimeter, and the fields of fire were overgrown. The Claymore mines, what there were of them, weren't properly placed. The actual fighting positions were not deep enough. None of them had overhead cover. It was pretty sad. And I called a meeting. Danny and I talked about it. I called a meeting immediately with the artillery officers and NCOs and the Mountain Yard chain of command, because they had their own chain of command. They took orders from us, but they had their own chain of command. And I said, okay, here's the deal. No more volleyball, no more cards, no more sunning yourselves out here until we get this place suitably ready to sustain an attack if it happened. Oh, what's going on? What do you know? I said, I don't know anything except that this place is in shambles, and this is crazy. And I said, when's the last time that they ran patrols around here? Well, well, they hadn't run it. They said the mountain yards would go out hunting. Well, you don't go into the thicket hunting, So I said, well, tomorrow morning, Danny, you and I were going to take about 20. I said, about 20 guys, well armed, rifles, double basic load of ammo, water. That's it. We're going to go out and sweep around this Firebase, see what's out there. And I felt pretty good about that. I felt pretty good. The sun went down early, and there's no ambient light. It's as dark as you could ever possibly think it could be dark. So that was the 28th of October, and it was getting dark, and I was tired, and I went to a hooch, and I took my boots off. Now, I don't have to tell you, if you're able to take your boots off when you're out in the field, that's a good night.
Yeah.
11:30, all hell broke loose. I'm up, boots on, which never came off again, and I ran to the north end of the Kate and down this nice gentle slope of all thigh-high grass into this dense jungle. There was a path about big enough to put a deuce-and-a-half track through. And then it went out around, and there was that thigh-high grass that went up to a pretty high hill. And on top of that hill, there was dense foliation. It was called Ambush Hill. Every night, we'd put a listening post out there. And they had gotten into it. And then boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. And I'm up there, and here they come. And there was enough moonlight, I could actually see them coming down off that hill, about 6 mountain yards, in a dead run. And there had been a pretty good little firefight going there for a couple minutes. And they're coming, they cut through our defenses and everything. And I'm telling you, what's going on? Buku VC. Well, first of all, anybody shoots at them as a VC. Okay? This happened to be NVA. Buku VC. So I called in Spooky, C-47, Spooky gunship, and they could put a 7.62 round every square foot.
Oh, wow.
They were amazing. And they fly, and they're It's old time, cargo aircraft, C-47s, painted black or dark, and they're lumbering and they fly around and they start putting fire in, and I had them drench the area. So about 2:30 in the morning, I figured, well, don't know what's out there, but I'm sure I disrupted whatever it was, so I went back to my hooch. And just pre-dawn, it rained fire and steel. We got mortars, we got recoilless rifle, and something else. Mortars, recoilless rifle, and some other indirect weapon came firing upon us. And like I said, those bunkers were not well, and we took a lot of casualties.
Wow.
So,
about how many guys were there?
Well, there was about 100, and it was 28 to 30 artillery.
Oh, okay.
And then another 100, at max, maybe 150 yards.
Okay.
Which we didn't have more than 130 yards at the end. So patch them up, calling for dust off. I said, Danny, let's go. So we got a couple squads of men, got about 20 guys. Let's go down through Firebase Kate, off the north slope, through that gap, up to Ambush Hill in the thigh-high grass, and to the vegetation. Sure enough, they had been in contact, and there was a shot-up NVA helmet, I think a part of a rifle stock, and blood trails. I said, well, I don't know. Well, it's the NVA, but I don't know what's going on. Let's and we're in good formation, flank, main body, point, tail. Let's go down through the thigh-high grass, continue north to the wood line, because that's where the blood trails are going. And we did. And probably 30 meters from the wood line, all hell opened up. And this was tall grass, cover concealment. Well, it certainly wasn't cover, but it was concealment. We all went down, returned fire, and we maneuvered to kind of a berm, a long berm, and we got behind that. And we were taking intense fire from that wood line. So I started calling for forward air controller, FAC, forward air controller. And by the time one got there, but in the meantime, infantry 101. If you're getting attacked here, and you can, we're going to flank them. So they couldn't see us, so we maneuvered. I took my men and maneuvered down into the jungle, and I put them on line like a gate, and I started coming around, so I'm going to hit the end of whatever the bunch shooting at us, flank them, and turn them up and roll them up. Infantry Tactics 101. The forward air controller sees it. He goes, Hawk, and I'll tell you how I got my call sign. Hawk, he says, I see what you're doing. He said, but you don't want to do that. He said, there are a bunch of them down there, way more than you got. And they're dug in. You get your guys out of there. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. So I pulled them back, and we went back to the berm, and I'm trying to call in airstrikes on them. He comes on again. He said, Hawk, get out of there. He said, they're coming around you. They're trying to pincer you off. Well, about that time, one of the yards comes to me and said, we're missing one of our men. Which one? The point man. And so I had to flak forward air control fire, and sure enough, he said, you got a body down where we initially had contact in the high grass. There's a body down. Can't tell if he's dead or alive. So I said, okay. So I said, Danny, get the machine gun, the M60, set it up. Everybody else on the berm, come up, cover me. So I took a couple yards, just our slung rifles, and we took off like rockets to that point. And I knew where it was from the kind of vectored me in. And we didn't take any in rounds. And sure enough, there was a yard and hit in the head pretty bad. So I scooped him on my shoulders like a fireman's carry, which is a hell of a lot harder to do in real life. And we started back. And of course, then they opened up. But our covering guys who were covering us, and we got back safely. And this is what I again said to you earlier. I've never asked anybody to do anything that I hadn't do or wouldn't do. Now, I'm just taking command of these mountaineers. They don't know me from an egg. And I just made the point to let them know that I consider my life just as important as their life. He was alive when we got him, but when we started our evac back to the base, he didn't make it there alive, but we did recover his body.
Yeah.
So we got back there, and once we got in there, this is now the 29th of October, let the games begin. What had happened is 2 regiments of NVA and an artillery battalion had come down from the north to hit Beaupre. And they're like, hey, I'll get this from intelligence later. Hey, what's this Firebase doing here? We got to knock that out. So they had about 5,000 to 6,000 men, and we had about 150.
Wow.
But we were dug in. And the air support started. We had choppers fast, coming in, low altitude coming in, dropping everything they could. The rockets and their machine guns coming in and strafing. And then when they weren't, the fast movers are coming in. The F-4s are coming in, dropping napalm and their bombs. And during any lull, they mass attacked. Hundreds came out of the wood line at us. But we were able to hold them off until we could get more air support.
Wow.
And then at night, spooky, they were definitely afraid of them. They kept it on. And at one time, I had requested more support, and they brought in B-52 strike. Danger close. I mean, they were, matter of fact, one of the guys on one of the yards was actually wounded by a piece of shrapnel. It is the most devastating things I've ever seen in my life. It just, you saw these flashes, and then you saw the ground started moving, and then you'd hear it. And I'm peering over my fighting position, going, oh, Jesus, and down I go. But it just didn't seem to have that much of an effect on him.
Wow.
It went on, and another highlight, or a low light, but kind of a highlight, day 3 or 4, we were getting incoming, and it hit so hard, we get such ordnance, it like shook my very DNA. And it turned out, I'm calling the forward air controller. I said, we're taking something heavier we haven't taken before. I think it's artillery, and these are logs and dirt, bunkers, okay, sandbags. Not gonna take an artillery route. So he's let me go. So he flew west, and in Cambodia, and he goes back. He said there's a Cambodian army base that was taken over by the NVA. Camp La Roland, I remember the name of it, and the NVA are firing artillery from there. I said, well, bomb them, take them out. And he goes, I can't.
Because it's in Cambodia?
Yeah, it's across Fitz. And this is my first time in combat. I'm thinking, damn, I'll never survive this. And he goes, the only way I can do that is if the ground commander declares a tactical emergency. I declare a tactical emergency, Roger. And he went in there and just bombed the piss out of him. And it created an international incident because I bombed a neutral country, and my name was on Nixon's desk like in an hour.
Wow.
Twice, because I did it again. Now, the call sign Hawk. My call signs were used to kind of throw the Asian tongue off. Nonsensical words put together. Dashing Lancer. Albeit was chicken wolves. So I am in between facts, and we're getting rained upon by fire and steel. And talked to the forward air controller. He's the outgoing and some others. He said, hey, listen, I'm getting low on fuel. Mike A2 is, he says, I got another fact coming. So you're going to be without for a bit. I said, Roger, I understand. So all this stuff is coming in, this incoming, boom, 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 boom. They really had to zero it in. And I'm in my position, and I'm talking on the Prick 25 radio, and all of a sudden I hear this forward air controller going, Chicken Hawk, Mike A2. And I'm going, who the fuck is Chicken Hawk? And why is his call sign so close to mine? And he goes, Chicken Hawk, Mike A2. And then it dawns on me, I go, this is Chicken Wolf. Are you calling me? He starts, oh, sorry, man. Sorry, Chicken Wolf. I said, call me Chicken Wolf, Chicken Hawk, or Chicken Shit. I said, there's going to be some goddamn aircraft in here now. And he goes, Roger, Chicken Hawk, and then Chicken Hawk shot short.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, man.
So to put a fork in it, we were desperately low on water and didn't have a lot of ammo left either. And I had requested boots on the ground for 2 days. Now, the 4th Infantry Division was about 100 clicks north of us, 10,000 men, good fighting unit. And about 50 clicks to the west of us was the 23rd ARVN, Army of the Republic of South Vietnam, a division, 20,000 men, 10,000 men. So the request went up, and they were going to send elements of the 4th. And because the Mike Force was currently fighting somewhere else. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. The higher command said, no, we're trying to turn this war over to the Vietnamese. We're the Vietnamization, Nixon's Vietnamization. So we're gonna stand down. We're going to let the Vietnamese go out and get them out. So they got all, through channels to the 23rd ARVN, said, you got to go and get these guys out of Firebase Kate. And they went, yeah, we're not going to do that. I said, no, you have to. He said, oh, yeah. No, we don't. And we're not. Because they might want to attack us, and we got to be prepared here. So neither side would blink. The Special Forces said, hell with this. So they pulled another Mike Force battalion out of the field, reinforced. So it was like, again, no one knew how many bad guys were there. And they inserted them. They said, hey, we're going to be inserting in. And it was about a couple clicks away from me. But there was rolling hills that I could see where they were inserted. And I could watch them through binoculars and even partly the naked eye. So I'm in Kate watching them inserting, and it's like, the cavalry's coming.
Yeah.
This is great. So they probably got about 160 to 180 guys on the ground. And then the NVA was watching them too. And they swept back around, probably about 1,000 of them, and engaged them. And I could hear the radio chatter. I could see them fighting. And the Mike Force, they were not dug in. And they could not get any more helicopters coming in while there's a battle raging to dump off some more men. So those guys, kind of the skirmish line, they formed a perimeter, a defense, and the NVA came in, and they fought like banshees. They had to fall back, regroup. The NVA pursued. They fought back, and they had to fall back completely. And they said,
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
So this was 4 days, 5 days?
5 days.
5 days.
This is day 5.
I mean, it sounds pretty incessant, like it was nonstop. I mean,
It was kind of nonstop, yeah.
With the lulls between close air support that you were calling in, you said that there would be waves of hundreds of guys. How are you guys responding to that? You're dug in, and is it like when you practice contact drills where it's just you're almost singing, like with the gunfire going, that kind of, is it just nonstop? You're just hitting them as hard as you can while they're coming?
Exactly. And we had these artillery guys. The guns were gone. The guns were gone like day 2. We couldn't fire any of the guns.
It was too close?
They were ruined. They had taken hits. They had recoilless rifles.
Oh, okay.
So the artillery guys were now infantry.
Wow.
And about half a dozen of them, Ken Hopkins, Nelson Kuhn, a couple of these other guys, Mike Smith, who was a lieutenant, they were this reaction force. So when they penetrate the first perimeter, they would be right there. And there was enough of them, and then I would be out there with Danny, and we'd push them back. So we were able to, they might have penetrated part of it, but we were able to get them back out again.
So they never actually broke all the way in, ever?
Not all the way into the inner circle, so to speak, the command post. No, they'd just break the perimeter, and then we push them back out again.
Yeah.
And the Mountaineers felt like devils.
Wow. I mean, so after 5 days, I mean, are there just piles of of bodies on the outer perimeter.
On the outer perimeter.
Yeah.
And it was warm. And
Yeah.
our dead were, stacked up like cordwood type body bags. Now, I would never call in a medevac for a dead person. Never. Because you know what? They're going to be just as dead tomorrow as they are today.
Yeah.
Wounded, absolutely. Never leave a wounded man behind. Always get him out any way possible. But if you're dead, you're dead. So getting the dead out was not my priority. We had an American lieutenant was killed, actually, literally. We were in the Mahooch, and he got there, and he was from Appleton, Wisconsin. And he was a new lieutenant, first lieutenant replacement, artillery, because the other one got shot up and we had a medevac. Absolutely, I'm talking to him, this is now October 31st. And I've given him a briefing in my hooch, in my bunker. And I remember his name was Ron Ross, and he was little but wiry, real wiry. And I'm talking to him, and I said, "Yeah, we're not in a very good shape here. And then I gave the whole thing, and I said, and I said, "Oh, anyway," I said, "Married?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." I said, "My wife just had our first baby, and I haven't seen him yet, but he took off his helmet, took out a picture, and said, and it was one of those newborn pictures you get in the hospital. She just sent this to me. I'm meeting her in like 5 days in Hawaii. I go, "The fuck are you doing here, right?" And because he came as a replacement, I go, "Well, that's great. Okay." So I said, "All right, here's the deal. We're going to run to the command post. Now, they're gonna take me under fire. B-40 rockets, that was it. They're gonna take me under fire because they got us zeroed in. So you stay here. I will take off to the command post, and it's got a splash wall." And I said, "Wait until they shoot at me, and before they can reload, and then come." Got it. Very important. So I took off as fast as I could, and I look over my shoulder. Sure enough, I see the orange tail of a B-40 rocket. But I also hear the footfalls of Ron Ross behind me. Well, it hit, but I had the concussion. I didn't get hit. I was thrown in to the command post. He was not so lucky. He got hit right in the carotid artery. When I drug him in, I was trying to stop it with my hand, but so he bled out within like 30 seconds, and I put him in a body bag, and when we got another wounded, I put him on the chopper because there was room, and we got him out of there. So back to the situation, I called a meeting when the Mike Force was not going to be able to come in. And I called the lieutenants, the artillery lieutenants, there's two of them, the Mountaineer chain of command, and the key NCOs. And I said, and I had spoke with each of their groups prior to, I took counsel with them. So how do you see this play it out? I said, "All right, gentlemen, we have three options. One, surrender, and that's never going to happen. Two, to die in place, but to what end? And it's not like we're waiting for Sam Houston to raise an army. Or three, we're gonna break out of here. We're gonna attempt to break out, and we're gonna go with three. So what I want you to do, take word to your men. We're going light. Rifles, ammo, water. What water you have, because we were just about out. And we had probably enough ammo, maybe to repel one more massive assault, maybe. So ammo, water, and then we're going to go. I said, "Well, we're going to wait till it gets dark, and then we're going to go off the north end." So I said, took the code book out, and I said, wrote this, "Request permission to abandon Firebase Kate." Sent it in. Now, they knew exactly the position I was in. They knew I needed water. They knew I needed ammo. They knew the Mike Force couldn't get in. They knew we were at overwhelming odds. And it didn't take them long to get back and said permission denied.
Why? Did you know why?
Didn't ask. Said, give me that quote. We are leaving Firebase Kate. Send that. So I said, go ahead about it. So they, we had the thermite grenades. We were spiking the tubes. The tubes weren't operable, just in case. Burning all the classified. We're just taking a prick 25s on our back, everything. And we had to do this kind of low key because the NVA was kind of watching us. About an hour later, they came by and they came back and said, permission granted. What we want you to do is go off the north end of Firebase Kate, and we're going to go at night. Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about going at night. Okay. And we're going to have Spooky come in and fire in front of you. I thought, oh. Now, this is very important. Go to the left side of Ambush Hill. Now, they had to put that out in the clear because the Air Force didn't have the same codes we had. Roger. So dark fell, and now it's like 7:30, pushing 8. And it was so very dark. It was quiet. And I said, everybody gather at the north end. And we had about 150 guys, maybe 130, somewhere in there. And I had everybody down there, and I had one of the artillery guys as my RTO. And I get a call, I'm calling the Spooky 57, what's your ETA? Hey, Hawk, he said, we got a little problem here. We got an engine problem. He says, hey, I got to go back. But don't worry, I got another one coming. Well, this isn't good. I mean, we're ready. We're at the north end, ready to go. So I waited again. So about 5 or 10 minutes, I call. I said, Spooky, this is Hawk. Where are you? Hey, Hawk, buddy. We got a situation here. We have some engine problems with this one too. We're going to go back, but don't worry, we got another one coming out. And well, I was worried. So I was sitting there, and I want to establish contact with Spooky. Mike, we were scared. We were all scared. About as scared as you could ever be and still move and function. Guys were saying goodbye to each other, saying, hey, if you get through this and I don't, tell my parents, tell my wife. It was that kind of a moment. And I took the mic and I, Spooky 4-1, Hawk. No response. Spooky 4-1, Hawk, over. No response. And I looked at my RTO, big, tall Texan guy. He goes, I said, this damn radio doesn't work. And he goes, sir, you're going to have to let go of that push-to-talk switch to receive. And I looked down at my hand. My hand was white.
Wow. I
had that receiver in such a death grip. And as soon as I released it, they said, hey, yeah, we're coming. Hey. And I thought then, I have got to get control of myself. I can't panic. I got to get control of myself. If I don't, I'm going to get everybody here killed. And I realized at that moment in time that I'm going to die. And I was not, maybe I'm going to die. I could die. No, I'm not going to see the sun come up. So I looked up into the cosmos, and I had a conversation with the big ranger, and I said, "Dear God, I know you're going to take me tonight, and you know what? That's okay. Just let me get as many of these fine young men out of here to safety before you do, and then I'll be ready to go." And Mike, at that very moment in time, I was no longer afraid. I was absolutely not afraid at all. It was like I took a deep breath, and I had full all my faculties and everything. And I said, listen, we can't wait much longer. I'm going to run back and make sure that we didn't leave anybody at the other end of the fire base. So I took off and I ran back there, and it's dark, and they're coming. I can hear them coming up the hill. Quietly and slowly, I can hear the brush being cut down because they think we're still in our perimeter. So I run back at the other end. Meantime, we start getting mortared. So I said, let's go. We got to go now. Let's go. And we stepped off into the night. Now, we were in single file because you can't move in the jungle and anything with flank security or anything. And we were at a good clip. We weren't running, but we certainly weren't walking. And I had the point man going down the hill. And Mike, if there was ever a ambush site, it was that gap in the jungle where the jungle came this far, and there was that gap big enough to drive a truck through. And then it opened up to ambush hill. And my point man stopped dead about 20 meters from it, dead. And we start, and I wasn't very far back from him, and I came up to the interpreter. I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "He's afraid. He's afraid. That's where the ambush is." And by God, that's where I would have put the ambush. I said, "Okay." So I took the my Car 50 and put it on full automatic, tucked it under my arm, took the mic, and follow me. And I stepped into it, and by God, there was nobody in there. The NVA were on the other side coming up, but there's nobody on that. So we started to go through, and the moon was enough where I could see finally the point guy, the point yard, instead of going to the left, as he'd been instructed, as everybody instructed to support us, he went to the right. Now I'm in the middle of this gap, just, let's go. And I see him, I'm going, we'll figure it out later. Because I'm supposed to link up with the Mike force. They're going to be sending out a unit in the jungle at this preset location, and I'm supposed to link up with them. And they're going to guide us to their main body and then out of there. That's what's on my mind. So he went to the right, and then I caught up to him, and we started, not the military crest of the hill. So we started down on the right-hand side, not the left, and there was this dense foliation on top. And as we started coming down and stepping into the dense jungle, I'm calling the Mike force, and I'm saying, we're stepping into the jungle at this time. We're coming in at single file, but know that the sound you're going to be hearing is us. And they came back, and they said, we're not out. We couldn't get there. We have nobody to meet you. You're on your own. Yeah, just one more thing, right?
Yeah, just one thing after the next.
I did. And, well, it wasn't quite done yet because the top of Ambush Hill, a 50 caliber opened up. It was a 51 caliber, the Chicom. And I see these tracers coming down at me, and they're over our heads, and I'm thinking Spooky's on station, and he's shooting. So I'm yelling at them. I go, cease fire. And they go, we're not shooting. And then I oh my God, they're green tracers. It's the bad guys. Well, what had happened is they were set up on the other side of the hill. I'm getting this from intelligence report later. They were set up when we got to that side of Ambush Hill, the left side. They had a 50 up here and whatever they had down there, and they were going to decimate us. They were going to cut us up to ribbons. But we went to the right. The yard went to the right. And that machine gun, when you if they'd have turned that around, we'd have heard it. We'd have been on it because we were that wall away. So when they did and they shot us, you could only depress that so far because of the bore. So they could depress it as far as they could. That barrel would shot over our heads by about a foot. So in the meantime, I'm hustling all these guys into the jungle, and we finally got what I thought everybody, but there was a group of yards that kind of split from us, but this is their backyard. And I had everybody, and I was told I had everybody, and we set out to link up with the Mike Force. Problem is, I didn't know where they were. I had an idea where they were, but I didn't know where they were. So that was about 8:30 at night. 2:30 in the morning, I found them. And we did establish a link up, and we did hook up and took a surreptitious route back to Buprang, and we walked into Buprang at 11:30 morning on October 9th.
That is an intense 5 days.
Yeah. And then the book came out of that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my co-author, Marvin Wolf. My Lord, there would be no book without this guy. He is he's also a vet, Vietnam vet, was a captain. He's a consummate writer. He's an incredible writer. And the research and his gift at telling a story was just guided me through the whole thing. So that's when the book came out, Abandoned in Hell.
Yeah. I think you have that same gift in storytelling, I think. I mean, captivating is an understatement. I mean, like I felt myself hanging on to every word as you spoke it and could imagine being in that position. And man, I mean, talk about the deck stacked against you over and over and over.
And that's something, like I said, I just...
Yeah, but then there's some of these split decisions that are a coin toss that you make that are literally saving your life, like the going right versus going left. Was that a gut feeling? Was it
It wasn't me. It was the yard. It was the point man.
Yeah, I mean,
he did it on his own. Me not stopping him, that was a conscious decision on my part. No, we'll sort this out later. Somebody said, well, him being, one with the land, spiritual, mountains. You think? I said, no, I think he just screwed up.
Yeah. Was the Mike Force about where you thought they were, or?
Again, hand to God. I mean, I knew the grid square they were in, but I wasn't sure where I was because we were plunged into the jungle, and I had never been to that part of it before. So I knew about where I was, but if you handed me a pine needle, said point out where you are,
yeah.
It was just, I don't know, hand to God. We was able to figure out. And then when we came out, now it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, and I said, I got my red filtered flashlight, my compass, and my map. And I'm going, okay, I said, I think they're across that clearing. There's about 80-meter clearing. So I think they're over there. And just about that time, I heard that distinct clank of a weapon being dropped. So I called up. I said, Mike Force, this is Hawk. I'm to your northwest. There's a clearing, about 80 meters. Send somebody out, and I'll identify. Hawk, this is Mike Force. You send somebody out.
You go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So I did.
Yeah.
And it was them.
Yeah. During that 5-day period, I know it was pretty incessant. Were there substantial enough lulls in the fire for you guys to regroup, reload, eat, sleep? I mean, were you sleeping at all in that 5-day period?
Not much. You remember, as a SEAL, did you ever get issued the stay awake pills?
No.
Oh,
I never did. But
they gave us. When I got to Vietnam, they gave me a jar of dextroamphetamine.
oh wow.
And I said, what are these? They said, stay awake pills. Well, what's it for? Well, if you have to stay awake all night on the radio or you're running for your life, take these. They'll keep you awake. Yeah. And by God, they did.
Yeah. I mean, this was basically meth.
It's basically amphetamines.
Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the side story, I got to tell you, I'm de-roasted out. I'm going home, and I'm packing up my stuff, and I got my DOP kit, and I got my stay awake pills, right? And it's clearly marked on it what they are.
Yeah.
It's like a prescription. If I threw them in there, I said, I might be get some use out of these when I get home. And you're going through Saigon or Tan Son Nhut, and there's all these bins. Throw your drugs in here, no questions asked. But if you get past this line, you'll be arrested. Blah blah blah. So I'm in there, and I'm in my khakis and my beret and my boots, and my captain bars are gleaming, and I am going through, and they're going through everything. And this MP picks this out of my bag, and he goes, "Sir, are these yours?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Sarge!" So the sergeant takes me, he looks, he gets me out of the gun and goes, "Sir, where did you get these?" I said, "They were issued to me." He goes, he says, "Do you know what these are?" I said, "Yeah, stay awake pills." He goes, "This is speed." I go, "Hey, that's a good name for it." He goes, "Go throw it in that container and then get back in line."
Yeah. Wow. So you guys were taking those during that 5-day period?
I was. Myself and Danny were, because we had to stay on the radios.
Yeah. I mean, is there a huge crash? Like, do you have to keep taking them, I imagine?
You have to get some sleep. You have to get at least a couple hours in there. And we made sure each other got 2 to 3 hours a night. But when I got back to Boot Praying at 11:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
boom, I was out. And I slept until in the morning. When I woke up the next morning, there was a an officer from group headquarters, a captain there who was there, said there's going to be a press briefing because you made a lot of news.
Yeah.
Made a lot of news, and this is what you can and cannot say.
Yeah. Wow. That's an intense 5-day stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. Do you remember what the casualties on your guys' side were?
After the initial attack, and and then after that, when we built up, dug in, when they started digging in, and I'll tell you what, the Arts they knew how to dig in. We started fortifying. Our casualty rate went way down because we were bunkered up.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what it was, but I think probably 20%.
Wow.
Yeah, and it would have been a lot worse. But like I said, we were dug in, and see that whole thing, that whole night of ACK, I lost one man.
From your group. Yeah. And it was that lieutenant or?
No, it was a guy named Norton.
Norton.
Private Norton, and no one seems to know what happened to him. No one seems to know.
Oh.
Yeah. Never found him again.
Yeah. So he was missing?
He was missing, MIA.
Yeah.
Never found.
Is there any thought or chance that he was captured?
Yeah, very, very big chance. They're kind of like another Vietnam legendary urban thing. Next day, choppers were out looking for him. And one of the choppers, they always in teams. And, one of the Hueys was fine. They said they saw this clearing area, a guy in jungle fatigues, jungle hat, American fatigues came waving like that. So the other chopper said, be careful. He said, I will. So he flew in to get a better look. And as he was coming in, the door gunner goes, it's a Vietnamese. It's an Asian. That wasn't his words, but
yeah.
And they pulled up immediately, and the whole wood line opened up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a trap, and probably that was his fatigues.
Yeah.
But we never found anything.
So to this day, no idea what happened to him.
None whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things, whether you call it urban legend or just, something that you, at least me growing up in the 80s, seeing, all these Vietnam movies, et cetera, the emphasis put on prisoners of war and the torture. I mean, it's such kind of a legendary thing. Was that something at that time that you guys were pretty hyper aware of?
We were aware, but we didn't know for sure. Very few guys escaped.
Yeah.
So that was always we had, I can't even believe I did this back then, but the grenade, I always had one grenade in my far back ammo pouch, one grenade that was for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't about to be taken captured.
Yeah.
If it came down to that, if it came down to being overrun. Yeah. So a lot of us did not want to be captured, especially being the special forces.
Sure. Did you guys have, this was 69, right?
So, it was 69. Right.
69.
Yeah.
Late 69. Did you guys have night vision, starlight scopes, any of that kind of stuff?
They did, but not in the field.
Yeah.
Not that you might have one back at the camp.
Right.
But not a little Firebase Kate.
Yeah. You've been awarded 3 Silver Stars, 3 Purple Hearts, and 5 Bronze Stars. From that 5-day stretch, what from that list came out of that?
My most coveted award, the Combat Infantry Badge.
Yeah.
The Blue Badge of Courage, the wreath with the rifle that says you're an infantry in an infantry position, maneuvering on the ground against a hostile enemy force. That is, I wanted that.
Yeah.
I sought to get that one. I got that. That's what I wanted because it's a matter of respect. From that one, Purple Heart. And that was it until 2012.
Oh, wow.
What happened is they had an award ceremony, and they call them Impact Awards. They would give you an award, not Silver Star as high as it would go, and then they would later verify it or upgrade it, could go higher. So several days later, it was very, very windy, very, very windy out there. This is now November. I get a call, the commo guy says, hey, General 3-star, I can't remember his name right now, is sending a helicopter to pick you up for an award ceremony back in Bamituit. Now, all helicopters in our area have been grounded. All helicopters have been grounded. But apparently a 3-star general outranks Mother Nature. So he was sending a helicopter out to get me. And I'm like, okay, for this award ceremony. I'm back at Booprang. The NBA hadn't caught up to us yet. But they were, the Mike Force was out sweeping the area, and they got in a pretty substantial firefight. So they had some seriously wounded guys, and they brought them into the camp, like 3 or 4 of them, seriously wounded. And the medic said, we can't, the medevacs aren't allowed, the dust off can't come in, they won't come in, nothing's fine. But here, you have a helicopter. And I said, they said, would you take these guys back to the hospital? And I looked at the chopper pilots and I said, can we do this first? And I said, sir, this is your helicopter. We'll go anywhere you say. So I said, well, yeah, load them on. So we got them back to the hospital and we got them in there. And then they flew me to the award ceremony, but it was over. So I missed. And yeah, I'm 21 years old, happy to be alive. And they said, where were you? Geez, the general waited not happily for a while. Then he got kind of pissed off and left. I said, well, I was dead, something I had to do. Oh, you know, he said, so we all went and got drunk. Well, people would always ask me, what did you get award-wise? I said, well, I really never got anything. So in 2012 or so, I was working on a congressional campaign with a congressman, and he was just a super, super guy, and he got in. And I was helping him out with his talks with veterans. And he says, is there anything I can do for you? I said, well, there is one thing. I missed this award ceremony, and I missed the award. Can you look and see if it's in the record somewhere? And he did. And he got all the information, but they didn't put me in for that. They put me in for something higher. But that didn't come through, but the Silver Star did.
Wow. What did they put you in for?
The Blue Max.
Wow.
So I got the Silver Star in 2012. So that would be number 3. And I am very happy to be here, and I'm very satisfied with it. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an impressive string of events and career that you had. I am curious, when you guys got back to Booprang, did the NBA follow you guys there and then reattack that as well?
Yes, they did. Now, we had hit them bad. They estimate that they had taken 1,000 casualties in their attempt to take Firebase Kate. And so they had depleted, 1,000 out of 6,000. That was a pretty good hit. So they did, and Booprang was ready for them. And the weather was good, so we could fly. And as long as the weather's good, we could fly. We did it, and so we were able to hold them off. And the Mike Force again was out engaging them in the other areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, they followed us right back there. That lasted. Oh, you're gonna love this. I got a million stories. Okay, I got a million stories. So, was that 2 days before the general called me back for the award ceremony? The group commander of Special Forces Vietnam was a full colonel. That's it. He's a full colonel. Iron Mike Healy. And I never met the guy, but it was maybe 36 hours after Kate. And Kate made, news, front page of news internationally. Nothing else was going on. So he flew out to personally congratulate me. So they had a group of commanders here, so the team was lined up, and I'm there, and he gets off the ground, and he comes over to me. This is 1969, and he hugged me. Men did not hug each other then.
Yeah.
And he hugged me. God damn it, Captain, best traditions of the Special Forces, job well done, and all, and on and on. Now, in the Trang, in headquarters, in the Trang, was spit and polish, starch, jungle fatigues. And there was actually, believe it or not, an ice cream store, an ice cream shop in Vietnam. And that was always the hoot when we were in the field, the Dairy Queen in Vietnam. So he said, where'd you want to go? You want to be my personal aide? You can do that. You pay any position you want. It's yours. I said, well, sir, I'd like to be the OIC, officer in charge of the Dairy Queen in the train. And all my midsts are going, he looked at me, and if he could have shot me, I think he would have.
Yeah.
So my little joke just, and he looked at me and he goes, I'm sorry, that job's already taken. Is there somewhere else, something else I can do for you? I said, well, I'd like to go to the 2 Corps Mike Force. Done. Did an about face, gun, helicopter, flew away.
Man. So he wasn't happy about that.
No, he was still happy. I would have laughed, but
Yeah, you didn't find it funny?
no.
In that engagement where you guys were able to hold them off on that secondary attack at Boo Prang, was that as intense as Firebase Kate, or like it was pretty lopsided?
Boo Prang was well defended. Fields of fire, trenches that were initial ones at fallback trenches, concrete bunkers. We had artillery, 50 calibers. My position was a 50 caliber sandbagged in on top of a Connex container. There was absolutely no comparison. Yeah. We were out of Lonesome. So we were well suited to hold them off. And we did. And we took casualties, and there was some bitter fighting going on. Again, Nick Palmer really had control of the camp at the time.
Yeah. So it's 2 days or so of them trying?
No, it lasted, let's see, I got back there November 2nd. It broke right before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So we were under siege for a month plus.
Non-stop still, or?
Non-stop in that there'd be a lull, and they'd hit you in the morning and then maybe hit you again in the afternoon, and the attacks, depending. So, yeah, so I went from one to the other, but I did go to the 2 Corps Mike Force.
Yeah. Wow. Were most of the attacks during the day, or were a lot?
Most attacks were during daylight hours, which was great for its calling in air. But at night they would launch also some mass attacks, and I got into it. Had a guy in a probably 600 meters away was firing B-40 rockets in the camp. And he must have had a shitload of them and from my point in my sandbagged off area by 50, we got into a duel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won.
What kind of distance is that?
This would be about, I don't know what the maximum effective range of a B-40 rocket, but I'm going to guess it was 500 or 600 yards away.
Was that pretty common distance for holding off that 2-month attack?
No, not at all. They would get it. They had this thing called they knew that Kate, they did this at Kate. They knew that the Americans were hesitant to bring in ordnance danger close. And they therefore would get in as close as they could to your perimeter, dig in, and therefore would be out of harm's way for the intense. Well, shit. Maybe some units, but not any unit I was with or commanded. We'd bring it in on top of us if we had to. So they would call grabbing the belt buckle and bring you in. And so they would try that, but we were on to a lot of the stuff they did.
Yeah. So that wrapped up just before Christmas?
Just before Christmas, because I ended up at the Mike Force a week before Christmas and got assigned to their battalion. Started out as a company commander and then became battalion commander. And then in April 1st of 1970, one of our camps, Doc Siang, up in the Central Highlands, north of where I was at Bupre, way north, up in the ocean area, up in the mountains, was attacked and just damn near overrun. Barrack, I can't think of his right name right now, received the Medal of Honor there, the medic that was there. And they, again, brought down two or three regiments to knock out Camp of Doc Siang. At the time, as a matter of fact, myself and Marvin are just started writing a second book, and the working title is The Last Green Beret Battle of Vietnam. And the two corps, no other battle transpired after that Special Forces had with the MIC force, Mobile Strike Force. So they were getting their asses handed to them. And they had like a bit of an antenna. Every other building was either bombed out or leveled at the camp at Dak Siang, which was substantial. And they dropped the 1st Battalion about 3 or 4 miles south, right in the pocket of the NVA. That was not my battalion. That was run by an Australian major, an Australian SAS major with Australian warrant officers and American Special Forces. We call it the International. And his job was to relieve the pressure of Dak Siang. I went in the day after when Captain Rao got the shit shot out of him and took over one of the companies in the 1st Battalion. And let me tell you what, it wasn't as bad as Kate, but it wasn't much removed. But there was a lot more of us. And we fought up to as far as we could until we couldn't go any further. It has completely surrounded water. When you're training, do you ever run out of water?
No.
It's the only thing you can think about.
Yeah.
Is water. We ran out of water, and now we're down to about 350 guys, and they're incredibly surrounding us with hundreds, and we're calling in. The major was calling in airstrikes. He called in napalm, and I'm in my fighting position, and my yards are out in front of me, and I command this much of the perimeter of my company, and I could see it coming. I could see the cylindrical torpedo tube coming. Now, when you're dropping ordnance bombs or tracing in your perimeter, they bring it in this way or this way. Never ever do they come across you and drop their ordnance. But he came across, and that napalm hit in our perimeter, and it hit in my company perimeter. And I remember seeing this massive explosion of orange. And I went down, and it was a deep fighting position. All of a sudden, I couldn't breathe because it sucks all the oxygen out. And I came up, and it was moving because the momentum was moving forward, and it took out about a third of my perimeter. And it stopped NVA from charging. That is true, but it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And the lucky ones died initially. The ones that we tried to save. We had those syringes of morphine, and that didn't even take the edge off. It was terrible. So we were at a very bad point. Morale was horrible. The major thought we were going to be overrun, and that's a whole other story. And then the 4th Battalion inserted right on top of us. Big Mac, Rich McDonald, and the 4th Battalion inserted on top of us with 450 fresh troops, fresh ammo, everything. And the tide of battle swung, and we were able to move forward and be the aggressor again. Yeah, it truly was. That was 5 weeks, and I got third. Then I got hit the third time, and they pulled me out.
Purple Heart wise. Yeah. What was the second one? Was it the?
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about quote wise. So there were bunkers. They were going to be earthen bunkers. These big, thick earthen bunkers. They'd put a colony of them. Maybe a half a dozen, maybe a dozen of them, where they knew you were coming, and they put machine guns in them, of course. And we were clearing bunkers. That could get tricky. We were using some laws and just some good shooting into the apertures, M79 grenade launcher. But the last one, the sun's getting low in the sky. It's the last one, and I'm to the right flank of it, and I'm trying to get somebody to get a round in there, and it ain't happening. So I turned to my yard that was sitting laying next to me, and I said, take a grenade, flank up this way, get underneath that bunker aperture, throw this grenade in there. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, never mind. So I dropped my gear, slung my rifle, took my grenade, and my guys could see me. My guys could all see me because the guy in the aperture couldn't. He was up. But you could see what I was doing, and I low crawled, and I got on the side, came up on the side of the aperture, and he's spitting out lead, and and I take the grenade and I let the pin go. Like they said, we got 4 seconds, 6 seconds. I'll be able to let it run out a little bit. 1,001. Fuck this. and I threw it in. Unbeknownst to me, he threw one out. So I rolled, and one of my guys yells, "Hawk, grenade." And I look over, I couldn't take their word. I looked over, and there was a grenade laying there. It was a Chi-Com grenade. It was a piece of shit. But 2 explosives went off. Mine went off and killed every one of those fuckers in there. And I dove, and his went off, hit me right in the back. And I literally flew through the air and landed in the dirt. And then they swept through. And the medic was on me, and he could see I'd been hit. And he goes, "Hawk, can you move?" And I said, and I'm laying spread. I said, "I don't know." He goes, "Have you tried?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, goddamn it, try." Oh, yeah, I guess I can. So they patched me up, and we went on. But again, don't do anything you wouldn't do, and that sent a message to the yards, and that hey, I respect your life as well as I respect mine.
Yes.
And that was learned the hard way for me, but that was all part of it as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. And then so the third time
we were out, we had oh my God, long story short, Big Mac and his 4th Battalion, fresh, we broke out. We pushed the enemy back, the regiments, and they were also engaged in another part with some other ARVN forces. And we started pushing them back, and we're doing good. And then all of a sudden we get this message, 4th Battalion, you go east. 1st Battalion, you stay west. Go around the camp and clear. Well, they had no idea how many bad guys were out there. 4th Battalion ran into a buzzsaw. We ran into 2 buzzsaws. So we ended up, once again, dug in, trying to defend our dirt. And it wasn't happening. We tried to break out this way. But on the west side, it wasn't a cliff, but it was an extremely steep hill. I don't know what degree this would be, but it was like this. Certainly no one's going to charge up it. We had it lightly manned, but I said, okay. By the way, the shift of command from the major, the battalion commander shifted to me, and that's another story. So I said, okay, we can't sustain this any longer. We've been there like several days hanging on. We're going to have to make a break for the camp, which was always our intention, was to sweep around and relieve the camp. So we're going to go off this side, this very steep hill. And I raised it with all the Aussies and the Americans and the yards to break off in groups during the daylight. Several, but leave a presence, and then slowly drift them back. So if they were watching, not everybody just didn't pick up and leave. And as they got there, I'm sending them off this very, very, very steep hill. And so I told, once again, take your rifle, your ammo, and your water, and leave everything else. We are going to be running and gunning and fighting to get out of here. Don't take, your sleeping, your poncho and all that. We can get that resupplied. So I'm there, and my radio operator was a mountain yard, great guy. Well, I told him, I said, just take the essentials. Obviously, I'm over there, and I'm at the edge of this, and there's the clearing, and then the jungle, and then our perimeter was out further than that, and the guys are coming through and going, go, go, go. And I start calling into the forward air control because I want him to lay down some fire. I get nothing. I look down, I don't have an antenna. And I look at it, I go to our operator, I said, where's the antenna? And basically he said, well, you told me to get rid of everything.
Oh, man.
I know. I said, well, we'll get the goddamn antenna. So he runs back to our hooch and got the antenna. And I'm sitting there putting it on. And all of a sudden I look up and I am the only one here. And here comes the enemy. They come start creeping. They think we're still there, so they're very cautiously coming in. But I get a hold of forward air control, and I said, okay, you know where I'm at. And I said, okay, everything north, south, and east, bring it in. Bring it in right now, immediately. I said, then I'll pop smoke, and I popped smoke, and I emptied my magazine, I slid down the hill. In the meantime, which detained them, slowed them up. Well, in the meantime, the battalion ran into the NVA down there. They were dug in bunkers again. And they had run into him and stymied it. So I went up to Captain Childers and I said, what's going on? He goes, we've hit. I said, well, we got to go around him. Let's go. So we maneuvered everybody. I got them all maneuvered to go around these bunkers. Didn't have time to fuck with them, quite frankly. And we maneuvered around them and we got started, everybody started back. But the best part is yet to come. The NVA figured it out and they came down that same hill. And they followed our path to where we went, and they ran into the bunkers. The bunker people didn't know that it wasn't us. So they opened up on their own people.
Oh, wow.
And they got in this tremendous firefight.
With themselves.
Man. But that gave us an opportunity to put some distance in between us and get to the camp, which we eventually did.
Wow. So from the end of October of 1969 to April of 1970, basically that entire stretch of 6+ months, you were in a incessant defense of camps and outposts type of position for the majority of that.
1 month, February, we went out and didn't make contact.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You mentioned the napalm attack on your own guys. Can you describe what that does to people?
It doesn't vaporize them; it sets them on fire, and it's a gooey thing.
So you can't get it off, yeah?
No. Well, let me back that up. It's not a gooey thing. It hits as a gooey thing, and then it explodes into this incredible fire, 2,000 degrees. I don't know, but if you're close to it, it's gonna incinerate you. It's going to char you, but if you're back for it, it's going to burn you and burn you bad. Our yards it was terrible. It was just terrible, and the burning flesh that's way different from rotting flesh. Burning flesh is almost this kind of like a pork thing. Rotting flesh is just something you'll never forget. So but what it did to the morale and everything, to the guys, we were just we were devastated and had to pull everybody back together and redistribute the perimeter for the future attacks. Yeah. It was pretty bad. The major who called it in, and this was not his fault by any means. He was very, very upset that it happened. Very upset.
Oh, I can imagine. It's something I don't know how you ever. I don't know how you live with that.
Well, he didn't do it.
Yeah,
the pilot that did it, that's the one. But people process things differently. You know that, and I know that. Was it not Stolen Feller, but Survivors Guild?
Yeah.
You could sit and talk to somebody for hours. It's not your fault. Why me and not him? What? He was right next to him. That bullet could, and you can sit there and talk to him and logically explain everything. It does no good.
Yeah.
And he really took it hard ahead, and it wasn't his fault. Yeah. And that was part of the process where I ended up taking over the battalion.
Yeah. Do you know how many guys you guys lost to that specific blue on blue attack?
20.
20. Wow. Yeah, that's brutal. I found myself wondering, this is unrelated to combat, but just being in that environment, the wildlife there, was that ever a threat, or did you guys run into things that were, did you run into panthers or
one night,
snakes or anything?
Only once, we we're out, we're moving, and we hadn't had contact, and there was no reason for us to believe there was contact. And we came to this kind of a waterfall. It's probably about 10, 12 feet high, waterfall into a pool. You don't see these very often. So we set up a perimeter, and we all took kind of baths, kind of splashed around in it, while, took turns in it. It was a nice break, and because we'd been out for a couple of weeks, and you didn't shave, and you didn't bathe, you didn't brush your teeth. You just moved forward. And that night, we moved maybe half a click away, maybe even yards away, maybe 100. Anyway, half a click away, we dug in for the night. Well, it was a watering hole for every animal that it was nocturnal. Yeah. And we heard, the yards swore they heard a lion or a tiger. Yeah. And there were tigers up there. Yeah. And they had things getting killed and people, so that's the closest that we killed a big steak one time and they ate it. The yards ate it. I went, okay, tastes like chicken. But other than that, no, I never saw any wildlife of any. There were deer. But, that many men. Now, the recon guys, they probably could tell you better because they were all sneaking around and things. Yeah.
Did you guys ever have any military working dogs with you in any of those capacities?
No, never.
Did you ever run into or work with any SEALs? Like, did you bump into them at all or never?
No, they were down south.
Okay. Back then, I guess, was there, from a kind of a both healthy competition, rivalry / also camaraderie, was that a big thing back then between other special operations units?
No, we were it. We were the big show. That was it. Within Special Forces, if you were in the field, there was the A-team guys that were out there training the mountain yards, and they would have their camps, like I told you about boot praying, and they'd be running ops around that to check on the border, and that was their job. Yeah. And then the next step up would be the Special Operations or a project. Like there was a Delta project, nothing related to, Delta now, and a few others. The big daddy was SOG, Special Operations Group, North, Central, and South, and then we were there too, the Mobile Strike Force. You don't hear a lot about them, but we were also Special Ops. And like I first got to Vietnam, they said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Mike, where's you go?" No, you don't have any experience. Yeah, so that was a big thing for me to go there. Yeah. So there was that kind of competition. Where were you? I was on an A-team. Oh, yeah, A-team. Oh, hey, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Some things never change.
Yeah, some things never change.
Yeah. Was there, from that kind of healthy competition standpoint, was the competitiveness to get into those units such that it was really hard to do, or was it a numbers game? I mean, how many active duty Green Berets at any given time were in Vietnam?
Oh God! Oh, somebody 5,000 comes to mind, but I don't know.
That were there at once?
Yeah, up and down throughout. Wow. SOG was always looking for experienced guys. Now they take inexperienced guys, but it was the only unit in Vietnam that had 100% casualties. If you were inside, you were going to get wounded. Now, I got wounded 3 times, but I walked away from each one per se. Yeah. And so SOG was that. The Mike Force, there's a really high chance you're going to get wounded, a very high chance. But instead of being caught out there with 8 guys behind, in North Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia, you're going to have around 400. Not to say you're not going to get your ass waxed too, but you're going to be able to put up a better fight. Yeah, yeah. So I decided to go with the better fight. Yeah. Once you got wounded the 3rd time and they pulled you out, was that it for your time in Vietnam? They called it a casualty report that night, and the next morning I'm out, and me and Billy Ledbetter and my team sergeant, and they said, came on radio, "Hawk, we're sending a chopper out to pick you up." I said, "Why?" Just get on it. I don't like this. So they sent a chopper out, and we had some wounded guys that didn't deserve a dust off, but I put them on, and I sent them back. "Hawk, send out another chopper. Get on it." Yeah, okay. So I sent some more guys back who needed some attention. but the medic said, they should really get patched up better than I'm doing.
Yeah.
Then I got a third call. Hawk, we're sending a chopper out. Get on it or get court-martialed. So I knew why.
Yeah.
I was flying back, and I was pissed because I'm leaving my guys. I'm leaving my troops. I'm leaving everything that I loved there. But then the reality of the situation set in. I thought, I have pushed this envelope so far, and maybe, just maybe, I need to step back now.
Yeah.
And with honor, instead of being carried back.
Right.
So I went back, and they gave me an incredible staff job in the rear. I had my own Jeep, and I didn't do shit for 2 months, 3 months.
And then you came home, and was that it for your time in Vietnam?
Yeah, that was it for my time in the military. Well, I did join the Army Reserve when I was in college, so did it as like a part-time job.
Yeah. Before we get into Secret Service time and subsequent employment post-Army career, years go by, the 80s come around, and you got, Rambo and Commando and Platoon and Apocalypse Now or, Full Metal Jacket. Did you watch any of those movies when they came out, or was it kind of a...
No, I processed very well the Survivor's Guild thing.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit of it. Anybody that died under my command, was it because I fucked up and did something wrong and got them killed?
Yeah.
They died in the line of duty, like I would have. I've seen most of those, and parts of it are good and parts of it are bad. I didn't understand Apocalypse Now. I still don't understand that one. But I tell you the one that I found the most realistic, but you're going to have to hear me out on this, was a deer hunter. The reason is that's the environment I came from. Not Polish town, but that Lithuanian town, or where it was, in the mill town. Well, I came from this kind of a blue collar. And we'd go to Nebraska for the German weddings, and the kids would all be out there and the dancing, and the men would be in the bar drinking beer, and everybody served their country. All my uncles were in World War II. Uncle Si was at Utah Beach, and we really got the flavor for that. So at the beginning, those three guys, they're going to serve their country, go sign up, go to Vietnam and fight. Well, that was me. That was me and Joe. And so that part blended in. And then the realities hit you, the realities of the war, what really happens, where their POWs captured and that Russian roulette thing. Now, I read a piece about that, and they said that they did that to bring the audience, to wear them out, to bring them to the point of, oh, Jesus, to kind of give them a feel for what it's like to be in combat, a bit of a feel, the tenseness, the urgency, that they did that to bring them to the point of that. Did that happen? Hell, I don't know, maybe, who knows. So I understood that. And De Niro coming home, yeah, De Niro. But he come home and how he was dealt with and all that, that was all part of the way when I came home. And so that had more impact for me personally than did the other ones.
Yeah. Did any of them resonate as far as, really capturing the dynamic of what it's like there? I guess more than that one, or like from a realistic standpoint, if for the people who never went there, to say like, yes, this really encapsulates what the feeling of being over there is like. Would you still say deer hunter, or any of the other ones?
No, that was to be personally. Yeah. I tell you, the one that I feel did the best for combat was Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, wow. That
beginning of that was incredible.
Yeah.
Anybody that's ever been in intense combat will go, yeah.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I actually talked to Steven Spielberg about that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember watching that and thinking this, like it felt like you were in it and part of it. And I think the
confusion.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest contributing factors, not to geek out on cinematography, but the camera works in those scenes, I think made all the differences.
Me too.
Just made it feel like you were right there with them, and it was, it left you speechless. Like, it's so brilliantly done. As things progressed from a society standpoint, the viewpoints on Vietnam, what was the overall morale or opinion, I guess, of the military towards Nixon and the way that the war was ended and the disastrous pullout?
Yeah. It wasn't disastrous. Vietnam was not disastrous. We pulled out in order. You're thinking of the collapse in 1975 of the embassy.
Okay.
But we started pulling our troops out methodically and regularly. And the last combat troops left there in 1973, March 29th, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Vietnam Veterans Day. We left with honor. What happened after that, the war was given over to the Vietnamese because America had a belly full of it. And they did enough. I don't know if you ever know the story of Ripley. He was the Bridget Dong song or something like that. But it's an incredible. He's passed now. He was a Marine with the advisor with the Vietnamese. He blew the bridge across this major river that probably delayed them coming in for months and months, if not a year. Well, they finally, they rolled in, and there were some Vietnamese units were hardcore and fought well. Some of the Ranger units, some of the airborne units, a couple of the infantry regiments were good. But the problem was from my perspective, the NVA were well-led and well-disciplined. And I mean well-disciplined. If you ran in combat or didn't do what they told you, you could be executed there on the spot. And I know one time we found a guy chained to a tree. Obviously, they didn't have much faith in him staying there. I mean, he was dead. The Vietnamese, well, most of them were political privilege. They bought their way in. They had no experience. So the discipline and the leadership that the NVA had, they were not super soldiers. They were good. They were damn good at what they did. But our regular infantry, the 4th, the 173rd, those guys were damn good at what they did. Now, you're going to hear the stories about smoking dope in the back and all that. Yeah, okay, fine. But when they went to the field, you didn't let your buddy do that shit because everybody's in jeopardy then. And as you well know, motherhood, apple, the flag, yes, okay. What you're really fighting for is that guy next to you. You do not want to let this man down under any circumstances. And when you go to the field, when they went to the field, they took care of each other. Now, you had your 10%, I'm sure, I'll give you that. But by and large, they served with honor.
Yeah.
And Reagan even said that when he dedicated the wall. These men served with honor.
Yeah, I guess that, if I came across as implying that they didn't, that certainly wasn't my intent. It was
Not at all.
It was more the way our political class ended Vietnam. Was there a perspective from the guys like you that were there and fought and lost brothers, a negative aspect of how that all kind of came to an end?
For what? I mean, blood and treasure. And when you say, well, we've had enough, so we're leaving. But I said, again, we had some dignity when we left. So that's something. But what happened in Afghanistan, it's criminal.
Yeah.
It's just criminal what they did.
Yeah.
What that administration did to those men, at least we can hang our hat on, so we had some honor in leaving, and we did it in a certain fashion. Yeah. Those guys up there, their buddies were killed. They've lost limbs and shed blood. And they go, pull the video. We don't want to do this anymore. That, to me, would be, you're one of them, so.
Treasonous.
Treasonous.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the general consensus of everybody I know. I mean, it makes their blood boil seeing the way that Afghanistan ended. Looking back on it now so many years later, when you look at Vietnam as an entity by itself, do Do you have any thoughts on our involvement there, how justified or not it was? Was it a mistake? Do you have a kind of a perspective on it looking back?
We stopped the spread of communism, without a doubt. We did stop the spread of communism cold. They probably lost 1 million men, probably about 1 million. We lost 58,000 wonderful, true, great American men. Yeah. Absolutely, we did. But again, it was a noble cause. It was an honorable cause. And hopefully, which we wanted it to end differently, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So you talk to Vietnam veterans, and the vast majority are proud that they served, and they have no regrets that they did serve.
Yeah. Have you been to the wall?
I have been to the wall when I was in D.C. As a matter of fact, I'm taking an honor flight for the first time ever to go back. And here's something for you. This individual's name is Timothy Davis. He's the chairman, the CEO of America's Greatest Generations, with an S. And I got a call from him right before the pandemic. And he said, hey, this is Timothy Davis, America's Greatest Generation. Have you ever heard of us? I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, we take warriors back to the battlefield. We've taken World War II guys to Omaha Beach. We've taken Rangers to Point du Hoc. We took Hal Moore's guys to the Idrang Valley. Valley. He says, and I'd like to take you back to Firebase Kate.
Wow. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what he said. I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
He goes, would you like to go back? I said,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I can imagine. That's a lot going on.
Cut to the chase. I went back.
Wow.
And it was a year ago, last fall. Myself and very good friend of mine. He was my. I didn't know how I would react, so he was my last magazine. Now, when you go to the field, you carry, let's say, 20 magazines. Let's say 10 magazines. And you use your magazines. And if you got to go for that 10th magazine, that's your last magazine. And shit's bad. And if you use it, that's all you got. So I took him as my 10th magazine because I did not know how it would be when we got back there. Plus, there was several other guys who were on the ground at Kate, some artillery guys. There was guys in the air who flew, and they lost people too. Joker 85 and his entire crew. And we got there, and it was surreal. I was standing on that, and it's still out in the middle of nowhere. And once I got there, and he showed me the GPS, Timothy Davis, the GPS position, then I could start putting it in. There's Lieutenant Rothstein. This was the 105 pits. This was the 155 pits. This is there. This is Ambush Hill over here. And it all started coming back together. And it was like kind of a dream, foggy, and then it came into reality. It's like, bam, I'm actually here. It was quite an adventure.
Emotional?
Not the kind of emotion like, oh my God, I can't. No, just something in here.
Yeah.
To be here after 55, 60 years later, and to have that all come back to me. But I've never been that far removed from it. When I wrote the book with Marvin, I couldn't have done this without him. This stuff is like it happened last week. I have vivid recall, just like I was telling you about Doc Siang. I have vivid recall about this. Now, when I speak publicly, I will talk about maybe some PTSD type things, of post-traumatic stress that will come in. And I say, when I came over Vietnam in 1970, I took some of those bad memories and those bad things and these stories, the Naraz, some of the napalm, and I bundled them all up. And I put them in this closet, and I nailed it shut. I nailed this closet shut. And I put them away. And I just said, now, that was then, I must now go on in my life. I want to go to college, I want to get a career, start a family, blah, blah, blah. And then, over time, It could be a sound, a smell, a turn of phrase, and that closet would come open and something would come out. I didn't have a breakdown or anything like that. It was a memory of something very distinct that happened. And I would remember it, and in my mind, I'd go through it, and I'd process it, and then I'd put it back into that closet, and I would close that door. But the problem was the door wouldn't go quite closed all the way. And then it could be 6 weeks, 6 months, a year. Something else would come out. And I'd do the same thing. And then I would put it away and try. But now the closet door was open even a little bit wider. And then in 2008, it sprung wide open and everything came out. I was no longer working for full time. I had the time, and when it all came crashing out, and it wasn't a meltdown or anything, it just all came back to me. I sat down at the computer, got a Word document up, and started to write. And some days I'd write for 8 hours, and some days I'd write for 8 minutes. And I never intended to write a book, but that's what came of it. So when these veterans, when I talk to them, I tell them, I said, sometimes you just have to, you can't ignore it. You have to process it. You have to think about what happened, who was there, how it affected. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. But if something you can do for you and your family, is write about it. And it's a very cathartic experience to sit down and put your words on paper, and then to come back and read them the next day or the next year. And it's a kind of a cleansing thing.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear you walk through that process and talk about going through so many years of different occurrences kind of creeping out and then going back in and the struggle, and then ultimately it all coming out at once. At this point in your life, is Firebase Kate in that 6-month period ish where you were under almost constant attack? Is that something that you think about a lot still?
No. But I do think about it.
Yeah.
And when I did write the book, Marvin and I wrote the book. It came out in 2015. I retired from the Secret Service in 2001. Guys were calling me up and going, "What the fuck? Why didn't we know about all of this?" Never came up.
You never asked. That's such a classic answer. I love it. Anything else from your time in Vietnam and in the Army that you want to share that you haven't?
It was it was a defining moment of my life. Yeah. Everything else after that it's not the greatest thing I ever did in my life. That's something different, something very special. But it is a defining moment of my life. And with the bin that I served with, it really, it had an impact on our life. Now my Sergeant Danny Pirelli, I spoke so highly of, he came home, but he never left Vietnam. It stayed with him up front forever. He's at peace now.
Oh, yeah. I really can't thank you enough for sharing your experience there. It's an incredibly powerful experience for me to be able to sit here and listen to you share that part of your life that is just, it's hard to put into words. So I really appreciate you taking us through that.
It's an educational thing that I did talk about it for years.
Yeah.
For years and years and years. And then when the book came out and I was put on a kind of a speaking tour, the more I did it, the easier it became. And the more I could reach out to other veterans, and you could see guys sitting in the audience. And I would love to talk to veterans when I'd be announcing all that. Vietnam veterans, there's a lot of them like,
yeah.
Yeah. And then about halfway through, they're like this, and then they're like this. So I understand that they're getting the message. Yeah. It's not about a medal I won received. It's not about the rank I attained or the people. It is about the experiences that we all shared.
Yeah. Incredible. You mentioned it wasn't the most defining moment in your life. What was?
The greatest thing I ever did in my life, the thing I'm the most proud of, that I hope if it could be on my tombstone in the National Cemetery, I was married and my wife took a turn, and I'm being kind here when I say that. And when the smoke cleared, I was in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 children.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. I was given sole custody, and she was not even allowed to visit. It was that dramatic. And I took my 3, I was in Washington, D.C. I was on a career path, and I took my 3 children, and we moved back to the Quad City area, and there was an office there, and I stayed there for 10 years and raised them, kind of Mr. Mom thing.
Wow.
And just before I left, I married my current wife, Mary. And so for that period of time, I was, that's the most important thing I've ever done. I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
But those children, those 3 children, they're all doing great. Just super, so proud of them. That may be why I was saved.
Wow. Did you ever find yourself ironing a grilled cheese or feeding a baby chili or stapling a blanket back together?
I did make a few things. They go, what the hell is this?
My dad always used to make, when my mom was not at home for dinner, he would call it cowboy food. And it was just like a pound of ground beef and a can of baked beans thrown in a pot, and that was food. But,
Cowboy food.
yeah. It was always good. I mean, I always enjoyed it. I made it for my kids once, and they didn't think about
Yeah, I
it.
know.
Yeah, they weren't digging it. But,
Yeah. It says, when do you have a vote?
yeah. All right, so you come back from Vietnam, you transition ultimately into the Secret Service. Can you give us kind of the play-by-play of how that transpired and ultimately what led you there?
So I'm 22 now, just 22 when I got out of the military, and here I am, unemployed, and no prospects per se. So again, my brother Bob, who my role model, my hero, says, you're going to college. I said, yeah, I figured that much with the GI Bill, and the Illinois had the Illinois State Scholarship for veterans. So I started college, and I did. I went to the junior college in our area first, Black Hawk Junior College, and graduated there with associates, and then transferred over to Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois, 4-year liberal arts school. In the meantime, I was married. I had a child, my first child, Jenny, apple of my eye. And then senior year, when I'm just getting into my senior year, I said, I'm older than these other. I'm pushing, I'm 26. Be actually pushing 27 here. So I got to think about what I want to do. So I started going to these job fairs, and there was nothing that interested me. And my buddy said, you'd be good in law enforcement. I said, I hadn't really thought of law enforcement. So I've certainly been on the other end of that law enforcement spectrum a couple of times when I was younger. And I started looking into it, and I thought, federal seems to have a better package, better salary, better benefits, better retirement. So I started, when I get close to senior, shotgunning out applications. FBI, Secret Service, Customs, ATF, and even some state agencies. And the Secret Service picked up my option. So I started in October of 1975. I was sworn in as a new agent. I started in Springfield, Illinois, in the Chicago district. And then I did about 3 years there, which was great because you could learn all the basics. You learned all the basics of our criminal activity, and you did enough protection that you'd been trained on and very well trained that you picked up more and more. And then I volunteered to the New York field office.
What was the service pistol in 1975?
2.5-inch Model 19, 357 Magnum.
Yeah. Did you use it ever in the line of work?
had it out many times.
Yeah.
But never a shot fired in anger. But I never made an arrest. I didn't have my gun in my hand.
Yeah, yeah. Once you moved to the New York office, was that culture shock coming from?
I'd like to say no, but it was.
Yeah.
It was. Remember when I told you, you asked me what it was like when I was in Vietnam and actually in the middle of this, and I said, this is where I need to be?
Yeah.
Well, this is where I needed to be. It was wild. I mean, the city, this was 1978, 79, 80, 81, 82. It was a wild town. And law enforcement, it was, there were certain cops who were prince of the city type guys. I ended up in a undercover squad, which was basically a counterfeit squad. What we would do is combat counterfeiting. We'd find somebody passing it, and then we'd scoop them up, flip them, and then we'd get who their supplier was, bring them in, flip them, and work it all the way back to the printer. And this is before computers. And just like a drug deal, you take it all the way back. Oh my God, we were just working ourselves to death and loving every minute of it.
Was counterfeit a huge problem then, I assume?
No, because of us.
But you ran into it a lot.
We ran into a significant amount. The biggest thing you had to worry about was when you got a new note, a new Federal Reserve note. And it has nothing to do with serial numbers. It has to do with flaws in the printing. And that's what we'd go by. Then we get assigned a circular number. And when you got a new one, you wanted to get that right away. Get it out of the way before the packages, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 packages could get out there and start being passed across the country.
Yeah. Back then, what was the protocol for being able to identify whether or not it's counterfeit? Like, how are you coming across it?
The biggest thing for me was paper. First of all, it's not paper. It's a high rag content. It's actually made by this one manufacturer, and it's got little threads in it, red and blue threads, and the paper is usually the giveaway on it.
Yeah.
First of all, you feel it, and then you do some examination, and the detail is just not there. Like the eye, the genuine is a series of concentric circles, and it's very hard to get all these things. And most of the counterfeit that we ever dealt with was offset printing, so it lacked tremendous amount of detail.
Yeah. Network-wise, were the counterfeit networks going, working it backwards all the way to the printer? Was there a wide swath of who those people were, types of people, organizations, criminal organizations that they worked for or with? Like, was it all over the place, or was it all like mob related or foreign government?
The mob stayed away from it because that would bring down unwanted federal heat. The mob did not like federal heat. Their biggest falls came from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Gotti, and all the ones before him. When you get to the big batches, they would be imported. Colombia was one. Asia was another. As a matter of fact, speak of it now, back in the 90s, there was a $100 bill that was so good. The flaws, I told you, it was identified by flaws. The flaw in it was the treasury seal was better than the treasury seal in genuine currency.
Wow.
And everything else, I couldn't tell them apart. I'm a recognized expert in telling counterfeit currency. But we had people that could, and there would be little tail signs that you would pick up. All of it was passed overseas. And we finally, after literally years of investigation, there wasn't huge quantities of it out there, but there was enough that it had impact in certain market areas, especially in Asia. And they were identified.
What is an amount that is significant enough to have an impact? How many?
Well, it used to be, they would normally cut them in 20s, and it takes a lot of 20s to make us anything significant. And then, of course, now it's hundreds, or as back when I was working counterfeit in D.C., big head money. When the bigger head.
Yeah.
Well, it would take, to have an impact on somebody's economy, millions of dollars. But, you see these movies where they show up for a ransom or something, and they have $1 million in a duffel bag. $1 million would be about 4 by 4 by 4. It's huge.
Yeah.
That much currency. So I didn't do any work overseas. We had offices in Bangkok and Hong Kong that were really working then. They'd work hand in hand with the local police who were very good at it. And they finally did identify where that we called the super note, the $100 was coming from. And I suppose I can't tell you exactly where it's coming from, but the place is located between South Korea and China.
Man, that's wild. You mentioned where the passing takes place. Can you just explain what that means?
So you get a counterfeit, and it's counterfeit, okay? And you go to the 7-Eleven or something, and you let's say you have 10 of them, and you would pass it. And if somebody calls you on it, you go, oh, so sorry, I don't know where this came from. And you would get out of it. So you would pass it to buy, $4, $3 worth of stuff, more than a pack of chewing gum. And then you would take that. And a lot of times these guys were meticulous. They would take that $17, that $16 that they'd get genuine, and they'd kind of fold it and put it over here so that they get track of how much money they actually won. And if you catch somebody with counterfeit and increments like this, folded bundles they would call it, that was a sure sign that they knew that they were out there passing counterfeit.
Yeah. But charge-wise, like for an average American citizen, if they end up with counterfeit and they don't know and there's no other telltale signs, is that still a charge?
No, that's nobody would prosecute that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. And in terms of the guys that do know that are trying to clean it or whatever is there a term for that? Is that what you would call it? Or
pass it? That's
the passing. What is it federal, is it money laundering or what?
No, it's just the states call it forged documents or whatever. It's counterfeiting. It's I can't remember the years, but it's a serious crime. See, the Secret Service was founded in 1865. It was literally the last thing that Abraham Lincoln signed off on before he was killed. And it had nothing to do with protection of the president. What happened was, at that time in our country, about a third of the currency of the United States was counterfeit. It was a huge deal. It brought us economic chaos in some place. You couldn't trust the currency. So they formed this group, I think it was ex-counterfeiters to tell you the truth, but they formed this group of operators, and they became the U.S. Secret Service, and their sole job was combat counterfeiting, which they did very handily. And then in 1901, McKinley was shot at a train station in Buffalo, New York, as I believe, and he died. He eventually died. And they looked around, they said, we had Lincoln killed, I think it was Garfield, and now this, don't we have anybody who can protect them? Well, you know what? The marshals are the oldest federal law enforcement in this country. The oldest investigative is the Secret Service.
Yeah.
They said, well, we got the Secret Service over here. And so that started the protection. And now, of course, that's the predominance of what we do.
In that counterfeit scenario, I know you've been retired for a while, but I imagine like China with their technology probably has a pretty high level capability of counterfeiting our currency at this point, I would imagine.
Yeah. And it goes around, comes around. But that's very true.
So you're saying we do that to them?
I'm saying we could. Remember the Nazis in World War II, they counterfeited the British sterling pound. And they had some 50s of American they were going to, but they never got around to that. Yeah. But their goal was to weaken the British economy. It never really got off.
Yeah. In that scenario where it's an international thing, how does the United States try to combat foreign state-sponsored governments who are, counterfeiting to a large degree? Like, is the only way to combat that is to try to catch the people doing the passing in the United States, or if
it's state-sponsored, it wouldn't be state-sponsored. It'd have to be criminal, and that's why we have these offices and liaisons with them. No other country wants to see counterfeiting done to somebody else because what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
We have everything that we could ruin your economy too. So what you're seeing now with counterfeit, and it's is coming in from like Colombia, Bolivia. It's still mostly offset because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, they have the ink on a note is either typographic or intaglio. It sits either on, if you look at it real good, it's on top of the paper or it's in the paper. It's pushed into it. And you don't get that from a printing press. You get that from plates. You don't get that from photographic copies. So that's kind of.
Yeah. How long did you do the counterfeit specific stuff? And
just strictly counterfeit, a year in New York, and then another year and a half in D.C. New York, I was just one of the guys, one of the agents, surveillance and running out notes and on bus. And in D.C., I was a supervisor.
Okay. Before you do the counterfeiting stuff, how long is the training to get you to a point where you're good enough to identify stuff and can actually start working the job?
At the Secret Service Academy, they take painstaking time to actually teach you. They take you up to crane manufacturing. I think they still do that. You see how the papers are made. You go to the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and you actually get down on the floor to see how the engravers are at work and how it's made. But with the advent of credit cards for everything, paper currency doesn't have the mystique and everything it used to. It's still out there, and they still can use it, and it's still a means of trade. But everything's so much plastic now.
Yeah, I suppose criminal organization-wise, if you're looking at it purely from a kind of a business ROI standpoint, plastic is 100x better for exploiting that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These chips and everything that's going on, they've come a long ways.
Yeah. When you were at the height of that, what was the biggest bust you did volume of currency-wise?
Oh, I think we did one in New York. I think by the time when we got it quick, not quick, but took weeks to work our way back there. A couple $100,000.
Oh, okay. And what kind of a prison sentence is the worst culprit?
Well, you could get 15.
15?
Could. But, you got a printer who's never done this before, doesn't have a record, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then if you have the criminal that's passing it or selling the packages off, he could do more.
Yeah. So you wrap that up, you end up going down to Washington, D.C.
I went from, they started the, 1979, they started the counter assault teams. That's a 5-man unit, and in the Secret Service, it's an anti-terrorist unit, and they were highly trained, and they took us in 1979 with a lot of former veterans. New York had a team, D.C. had a team, L.A. had a team. Then they tried to have them on the actual details with Reagan and Bush. They just couldn't get those guys. They were traveling so much and doing so much all the time. They couldn't set them aside only to do this. But it's in the motorcade, and you see them now in a darkened SUV, and they're in BDUs, helmets, and all that. Back then, it was F-16s and BDUs, and you were in the motorcade, set far enough out of what you hope to be the kill zone, but still in the secure package. And in most assaults on a protectee, most assaults throughout history have actually taken place in and around a motorcade. The arrival, the departure, or actually in the motorcade moving. And this was why the counter assault team was codified and put together. And as in 79. I happen to be a plank holder, and I'm very proud of that.
That's amazing. How long did you do that for? Was that the bulk of it?
Did that for 2 years in New York, and then 2 years down when it got to be. So I'm in New York, and I'm a field agent, and I'm working in the middle of a counterfeit squad or another investigation, and DC called them and said, "Hey, we need that New York team to be in Puerto Rico." President's going there, or the vice president or something. We need him down there. Hey, boss, I got to. Well, who do you work for? You guys. Well, boss, please take me out of this. And so the field offices in New York, Chicago, LA said, hey, you can't keep taking these guys away from us at a moment's notice. They're in the middle of cases. You got to have some, and then you take them away for a week. So they decided to centralize the counter assault teams, and they did that in 1982. They brought them down to Washington, D.C., and the original 5 teams, and I transferred down with them.
Yeah. How much time did you spend there? Was that the rest of your career?
No, I only did 2 years.
Okay.
It was, and now it's I can't say a fast track, but it really looks good on your record having been in the counter assault team program.
Yeah.
Back then it was they called it a career killer. Because oh my God, you're out, you're taken out of mainstream, and so I did 2 years there as a team leader, and then transitioned over to the George Bush detail. They brought me in. I actually went in and I said, "Are you going to make the team leaders? Are you going to promote the team leaders? Or are we just going to stay at this grade?" And well, yeah, that's a no. Then I've done my time here. I want to go somewhere where I can get a career opportunity.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go over to. We got to do a slot for you. We're on PPD, Presidential Protection, Reagan. I said, no. No, I'm not going to do that. I've been around him for 2 years. And he goes to the ranch, and he goes to Camp David. And other than that, he doesn't travel and hardly does it. He doesn't like to. He doesn't want to. He doesn't. But you know what he does? He brings George Bush in. Said, my lips to your ears. This is the message I want you to take to the Sudan. This is the message I want you to take to China, to Germany. And those guys are out there doing protection all the time. And that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I got to go to the VP detail with Bush.
Yeah. But just real quick on the training for the counter assault stuff, comparing that to your time as a Green Beret and the training you did there, in terms of high speed, low drag, or high speed, low speed, was the training on par? I mean, was it good training where you felt like that unit was comparable to American Special Forces? Apples
and oranges, different missions. The training in SF is, my Lord, I don't know if it could be better. And the training in the counter assault team, considered their mission and everything, was way beyond what a normal agent would get. Way beyond. And a normal agent is highly trained. I used to be a teacher, instructor in the academy, so I know what they go through. And the counter assault team goes way beyond that. Again, different mission. And shoot. There was one time in my life I liked to shoot. I don't care to shoot anymore.
Yeah.
I swear, all we were training. We're out in doing PT in the gym, or running, or working as a team doing team PT, or out in advance doing it. As the guys on protection, presidential and vice presidential, used to say about us, you go to CAT, it's a full athletic scholarship.
Yeah. I guess caliber of individual, was it a pretty comparable type of guy?
Very.
Yeah.
Very comparable.
Yeah.
Smart, quick, assess. And like you, when you went through your SEAL training, when you get somebody who can do everything, but you're just not comfortable with them because you're not comfortable with them as a team member. That's the same way with CAT training. If you get a guy in there that doesn't fit in with the team.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah. Was that common?
No, but it does happen.
Yeah. Similar to special operations,
Exactly.
Yeah. So after that, you go on to vice president at the time, Bush's detail.
Yeah.
What was that like having seen it for years, and now you're actually boots on the ground doing it?
That was great. It was some of the best. It was some of the best 4 years of my career. I had a great career, first of all. That was the caliber of and nothing against the presidential protection guys. They were super guys, but they didn't get to show it a lot because Bush, he didn't go anywhere. Reagan didn't go anywhere. Bush was constantly gone.
Yeah.
So the caliber of the guys that I served with, I remember getting over there and I'm thinking, well, I'd like to go from my journeyman level as a GS-12 to a GS-13, and I've been on the job long enough and everything, and I got over there and saw what I was up against, and I go, yeah, I'm just going to keep my head down and shut up and learn from these guys. They were super. Yeah. To this day, super friends with a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Any close calls or super interesting stories in that 4-year period?
No close calls, because I will say this, we were that good.
Yeah.
But there is one story that I think you'll find amusing. So I just got over from the counter assault teams to the detail. So from BDUs to suits, and I am now go through the initial training, and I got to tell you something too. When I was going through orientation, especially in charge of the detail, because this rings true, and it rings true with what happened to the Secret Service lately. Especially in charge of the detail got up, and they bring us in groups of about a dozen. Because you don't want George Bush to come out, or Ronald Reagan, or any president or vice president, look around one day and go, who are all these guys? I mean, they know the faces. So they bring in a slow rotation. He comes in there and he says, George Bush is one of the finest men that I've ever met in my entire life. He knows me, of course. He knows my name, of course. But he also knows my wife's name. He knows my children's names. He knows my anniversary. He knows a lot about me. But George Bush is not my friend, nor will he be yours. We have a line. Do not cross that line. And what happened here with when Director Cheadle started making all these DEI things, and 30% of the Secret Service agents will be female, and by 2030, and started arbitrarily doing all these things and taking away from the training and the mission at hand. That is becoming in bed with the administration. The Potomac fever. I'm as powerful and meaningful as they are. Drinking the Kool-Aid. And who suffers? Well, the unit suffered. And this is what happens. So there is a distinct line between protection and well, there's a distinct line. You don't cross that line. You're not their friends. Okay, you got to understand that. It's extremely important. And if any time they would ever see somebody getting to, changes would be made. And of course, there's exceptions to everything, but by and large, everything was very, very, very professional. Okay, so I show up for midnights. And it's my first midnight after I got orientation, and I'm down there with Pete Dowling, great, super great guy. And in the Naval Observatory, where the vice president lives, you get the outdoor exterior posts, but you have one interior post, and it's in a lower level and not far. It's so you can respond up. So it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is my first midnight, and I screwed up. I didn't bring anything to eat. So I asked Pete, I said, Pete, is there anything open? Is there Domino's? Is there anything open? He goes, oh man, Bill, he said, we're in Georgetown area. It's a Tuesday night. Everything's closed. I said, damn, I'm hungry. He goes, well, he says, you go down to the kitchen down there and see if there's anything left over. There might have been a cocktail party. There might be something in there. And I said, we can do that. He goes, oh, hell no, we can't do that. He said, if you're that hungry. Yeah. He says, and I'll tell you another thing. He says, every day, the Navy stewards, the Filipinos, they make cookies every day. He says, and what doesn't get eaten, they hide them because they know if we find them, we'll eat them. You might find those, I don't know. Yeah. And so I walk down the hall, and I go to the big Sub-Zero. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm opening and I'm looking in there, and it's slim pickings. There's not much in there at all. And all of a sudden, this voice on my shoulder goes, anything good in there to eat? And I said, no, looks like security cleaned out. And I turned around, and I looked, and it's George Bush. And I went, oh, fudge. But that was not the word I used. Yeah. And I thought, oh, God. And he goes, well, I'm hungry. And so I played the only card I had. I said, well, sir, every day the Navy stewards bake cookies. And they usually hide them at night. He goes, there's cookies here? And I said, so I've been told. He goes, let's find them. So pots and pans are rattling and everything. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, he goes, I found them. And he goes over this big table, and he takes a big stack of chocolate chip cookies and some milk. He says, oh, I'll see you later. And he goes up. So I take my cookies, and I go back down to where Pete is. And he's sitting there watching CNN or something, and he goes, hey, you found the cookies. I said, well, I did exactly. And he goes, hey, who are you talking to in there? So I told him the story. Yeah. One person One person, I told that story to one person. It's on the internet now.
Rummaging through the White House kitchen with HW.
Oh, the Naval Observatory kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Assuming you had the same opinion of Vice President at the time, Bush.
They were. I don't know that in the history of the Secret Service there could have been a better time to be at the White House with Reagan and Bush. They were just great Americans, and what you saw, you got when the camera wasn't around and the curtains were drawn. They were exactly the same men that you saw in public. Yeah. I can't say that about many of the other protectees I've been around.
Yeah. It seems that way. Like, I'm not surprised to hear that. They seem like really good people. Did you ever see George W. Bush at that time? Did you run into him much? He would have been...
The son?
Yeah, fairly young.
I worked I was a supervisor at D.C., and I was a small portion of his inauguration. But I talked to many of the guys that were on his detail.
I mean, I guess when you were on Vice President, but his dad's detail.
Yes, I did. I did, actually.
What was he like at that age?
He was, I remember I was on Air Force 2, and we were flying somewhere in the mid-'80s, and he come walking back with a cocktail and a cigar. And he goes, "How you boys doing back here?" And we said, "We're doing fine, sir, doing fine." And he took a puff of the cigar. It was the 80s, right? And a sip. And Barbara came back. "George, put that cigar out, for God's sakes. And, get back in." Yeah. And Barbara loved this. We had no problem with Barbara. But that's until he found Jesus, so to speak. Yeah. Until he ran it all out the end and goes, "Yeah, I'm done." Yeah. And but all the guy, he was a bit of a rounder back then.
Yeah, a bit of a playboy a little bit.
Can't say that, but he was certainly a bit of a rounder.
All right, so you did 4 years there as Vice President detail, and then where did you go after that?
My marriage was falling apart, so she wanted out of the cities, out of the D.C., so I went to the DAD, Deputy Assistant Director of the Secret Service, and said, "Hey, I did my 4 years. I did CAT here. I was in New York with hardship details after hardship details. I want to go." And he said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I was kind of thinking like Seattle." He goes, "Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. Let me tell you what's going to happen." He says, "You're going to go either to Counterfeit Division or to the Academy to teach, and then you're going to be there about 3 years, and we're bringing you back to presidential detail as a shift leader, as a supervisor. That's your career path." So I went home, told, didn't go well. Everything fell apart. Now I'm in the apartment with three kids, and I went back to see him. I said, "Okay, the game has changed a bit, and this is what's going on." And because I had for 14 years done everything they'd asked and did it well, they made that office for me, and I took the kids and went back there. And this is a good story. 1998. I'd been there 9 years, and when I was growing up, my mother said to me one time in a frustration, she says, someday I hope you have a son just like you." And I did. Nick the Barbarian. And it was just great, but oh my God, the stuff he used to get into. So I'm back there in 1998, and I'm going through, because I've been in the Quad Cities now for 9 years, and I am the Secret Service of the area.
Yeah.
And the guy that was partners with in New York, former Special Forces Vietnam, and a very good friend of mine, we're on a counter assault teams together at D.C., is now the director of the Secret Service.
Oh, wow.
So he calls me up. He says, "Hey, can you come over and talk to me?" Sure. And he and the deputy director picked me out and said, "Let's get a beer." I said, "Okay." I'm back for training. I said, so I go, "What's going on?" "Okay, here's the deal. We need you to come back to D.C. We want to promote you and bring you back to D.C. We don't have the experience, or we just don't have the experience of the young guys. We're promoting people that have no business being promoted. We need you to come back. And so we're asking you will you transfer back to Washington, D.C.? And I said, you're asking me? And he said, yeah. I said, no. And he goes, no. And I said, no, are you kidding me? I said, my office is in my house. It's a spare bedroom.
Yeah.
I said, my commute is bathrobe, coffee, go turn the phones on. I said, I am the Secret Service. I know everybody there. I know all the cops, all the chiefs, all the detectives. No, I said, if you're asking me. And they said, well, we're not going to force you. I said, okay. He said, but you got to remember something. I said, what? He said, did we not make an office just for you when you got custody of your 3 children? And it was just you. Did we not make that office in the Quad Cities? Yeah. Well, now we need you. I said, okay, can you give me till next June? My son, Nick, the Barbarian, graduates from high school. And that's my life goal, is to get him out of high school. I said, done. So he graduated June 4th, and I reported at Washington Field Office June 6th, 1999. Wow. And I finished my career there. And it was a tremendous opportunity, and I'm very, very glad it worked out that way.
And what did you do at that last stage?
The first thing I did is they had a counterfeit squad that wasn't really doing much. There was counterfeit, but they just, the agents in there weren't that motivated, let's say that.
Yeah.
Because, see, if you're in D.C., it's all about protection. It's all about, I know I have to be in this squad because I'm a new agent, and I can't go to protection for another few years, couple, 3 or 4 years. So, okay, I guess I'll do this criminal work or this or that. So that's what I took over. And in 6 months, I had them kicking indoors and locking people up and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Had the game changed?
Yeah, so it went from offset printing to computers.
Oh, okay.
And we were very fortunate. I had agents that have been on the job a year and a half. And if you're motivated, you want to be led. You want to be led by somebody that you can respect. You respect their opinion and where they're going to take you. And I happened to step into that slot, and I had the credentials. Jesus, God, I'd been on the job 22 years. I had all this experience that I brought to the game with me, and I treated them with respect, and I mentored them in their report writing. Okay, this report here that you gave me, it's dog shit. Let me show you why it's dog shit, and let me show you how to make it better. Let's do this, okay? And I didn't lose my temper. I didn't do anything to jump up and down. I'm not that kind of a leader. And I brought those guys along, and the next thing you know, the guys are beating down the door wanting to get into this squad because we're having so much damn fun.
Yeah.
And then they went through, and then I did my 20 months there, or 18 months, and then the boss had to rotate, and they put me in a protection. So I did the internal protection of the field office, which means Washington, the presidential or vice presidential would say, hey, we're going to the Hilton, we need X number of agents to stand post. The advance, we have a guy from the Washington field office, will assist you in that advance, and a guy from presidential protection or VP, they come together, they do the advance, they come up how many post standers we need, how many police, then it came to me. Then I had to sort it all out and start body snatching.
Yeah. From the protection side, specifically the president and vice president, is there, from an agent standpoint, is there an age at which internally that they don't allow you to go past and still be on those details, or is it all standard related?
Well, that's a good question. For a while, guys were hitting the details because they were all senior guys. I mean, they'd been on the job 5 or 6 years. Very seldom would you get a guy who had been on a job 3 years that end up on a detail. Hardly ever. I don't even know of anybody. So they would hit the details with 5, 6, 7, 8 years on the job. Now that would put them usually, because we were hiring later in your life where you had experience, would put them in their 30s. So they did a quasi-study per se, and they looked at, because it's a tremendously demanding job, physically and mentally, and the stress level is very high. So they looked at, should we bring in younger guys? So they're in their late 20s, maybe mid 20s when they hit protection, because these guys in their 30s are doing a great job, but maybe they're getting a little long in the tooth. Maybe it's too taxing on them. And it wasn't much of a study, but they did come away with this. It wasn't about the age. Nobody, I mean, 40 would be about the okay. It was about the shape you were in. And physical fitness on the detail is paramount. It's key. They take PT tests monthly. They shoot monthly, and it's always a competition. There's always a competition of who can do the most, whatever, fastest run, most push-ups, most sit-ups, best shot. That competitiveness is always there, and it spurs on each other. So it wasn't about the age. There is a point, though, a man. So when you get into your late 30s, I was about 37, 38, was about as long as I've ever seen an agent as a working shift agent. Yeah. Now, supervisory, well, that would go different. That would be a different plank, and that would go into your 40s.
Yeah. Do you know if it's still that way?
I think so, but I don't know so.
Yeah. I mean, with what happened in July and just a number of missteps here, over the last few years that we've seen, do you have a perspective on where the Secret Service is at as an entity now, Vice, when you were there?
We touched on it before when the director bought into the DEI, and they bought into this. Well, she was recruited by Joe Biden. She used to run Joe Biden's detail. So she brought her in to take over the agency, the Secret Service. And she started losing sight of our mission, our mission, and we were more of a petri dish trying to socially reconstruct the Secret Service. So what you had on July
13th,
13th, yeah, 7/13, was the roosters to come home to roost. You had an incredibly, this is the worst advance I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've done many, many advances, and I've been on the other end. I've gone into places that have been advanced. I couldn't believe when it started coming out of all the perimeter. You have the different perimeters, the communication. Military, what do? Shoot, scoot, and communicate. Communication. You must have communication. And for them not to have, when I was an agent and my buddies, we had a communication center, command post. And every communication we had the state police, if they had their own radio, somebody'd be in there with a radio. If it was a local police, somebody'd be in there. If there was two jurisdictions, we had communication with everybody, and we had a communication with our agents on site and our agents that are working on the shift. And everybody knew what everything was going on all the time. And for them to say that it was communication, they weren't in our command post, that is literally the basic 101 step of an advance. And then the rooftop, people are saying, hey, there's this guy trying to get a rooftop. Looks like you might have a gun. Oh, yeah, well, let's are you kidding me? Shut it down. You get Trump, you get it off there, and you get him away from there. It's hard for me to contain myself when I talk about it. This is the worst example I have ever seen in the Secret Service. And then take it to the golf course. This guy's there for 12 hours, and nobody finds him? I've done golf course advances before, as my friends have. You're out there ahead. You're out there always ahead of him. You're out there patrolling it with a moving vehicle along the perimeter. You have people in the woods.
So I guess, to me, I understand the, Cheadle coming in and kind of flipping the table over standard-wise, but looking at the detail that was there on July 13th, there's still, at least from the appearance, seemed like there were some agents that, had been there a while and were in the positions that they were in because
that was a working shift. See, they came in. See, the working shift brings in the protectee to the advance has already been done. The agents have already been posted. They believe they're coming into a secured environment, but they weren't.
So is there a single point of failure there, or is there multiple?
Supervision. When I would go out and do an advance, I would then do the advance, and I'd say, okay, this is the schematic. This is where my posts are. And I would show it to the lead advance. An elite advance would go over it. Okay, we thought of that. Then a supervisor would look at that, and then the overall supervisor, this would be Pittsburgh, he would be walked through and briefed on everything. And you would sit there, well, what about this? What about that roof? Yes, sir, we have that covered. This is, on this post here, this is responsive. So everything is pre-planned. None of this was done. None of this was done. Nobody in their right mind could say, yeah, I looked at it, it was a good plan.
I mean, so I guess the surprising thing for me is the fact that 3 different supervisors should have looked at it and didn't. Like, I guess I would just have assumed that, even in the 4 years that Biden was there and they made these changes, that the ripple effect wouldn't even be possible to have that far-reaching of an impact that far down the chain of supervisors, or that far up, depending on how you look at it.
They never had a former president that had this type of threat level. Never. Now, you had Bush, who, he invaded, and they had some, Arab countries that wanted to kill him and all that. That's the highest we've ever gotten, okay? But we've never had anything this high. And yet, they didn't treat it as such. There are some people, and I'm not going to say I'm one of them, but there are some people that say they didn't want to give, the director didn't want to give him too much protection because it looked too presidential. And he's going to be running for president, and this would look like pomp and circumstance when Biden is here and he's the president and so on. I'm not going to ascribe to that, but that rumor's out there too.
Yeah. Wow.
It was a total failure on every level except the working shift. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, when you're working the shift and you're out there and you notice the agents who are working the shift, if they're working a crowd, their hands are out and their hands are here working it, because if somebody pulls up something, they go for it. Now, if they're standing back, you notice your hands will be in here, because it's quicker to go for here than it is from here. Now, in this one, when he's up there speaking, the agent who respond, one of the first things you try to do if it's a male or even a female, depending on what they're wearing, is get your hand on that belt or their pants or their shorts or whatever the hell you get your hands on from their back, and you pull it. You pull it into you. What that does, the body naturally folds a bit, comes down, which shrinks you as a target, and therefore your working shift then interposes themselves between the danger, and that's when you keep them bent down, and you get them to the armored car, to the protected area in the car. That's rope. Fight.
Yeah.
I used to run these things, we call them AOP, Tackle and Principle, at Beltsville training when I was instructor. We used to run these things, and we've never had a protectee that once shots fired out, that stood up instead of went down, but that was Trump.
Yeah.
And that's when you really saw that the male agents that were around him were his height or thereabouts, and then suddenly there's a head shorter female. That's the first time you saw that, my God, she's so short. And now I'm talking one that couldn't find her holster. I'm talking to one that was on the ship that he's exposed. That's never happened before, and I don't know how they're going to answer that. Hey, you can only be 6 foot tall if you're a female on the detail. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an eye-opening and shocking just series of events, that whole thing. And,
yes.
and the more that came out afterward, I think, even having never, had anything to do with the Secret Service, but having some understanding of tactics, I was just like,
no,
how does that happen?
It's pretty basic. Yeah. In your training that you've had, you'd have never let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've done some, we do some personal protection detail training, but certainly not to that level. But all right, so you spend the last few years at the Washington, D.C. office overseeing the currency group, and then you retire from there.
Yes, I did. I went with Ford Motor Company.
And what was that like?
Ford Motor Company is a tremendous company. I got to say that.
Did they give you a Ford GT as a signing bonus?
No, I did have a car.
They should have.
They Their higher ups, like they on their 8th floor, and as a matter of fact, the Secret Service had an 8th floor too. They were extremely talented and smart and savvy, and their board of directors. But their middle management, it was. They're all very worried about their jobs and about getting promoted. I had this one story I like to tell about management. So I'm an executive service, ES, or executive slot 5. And Bill Ford is like 1, okay? So 2 is heavy hitter. So the guy who runs research and engineering, I love this guy. He'd have a meeting once a month. He'd call a meeting once a month, let's say 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and he'd have all the departments there. That's where the engineers are, and of course, I had security for that. If I wasn't out with Bill Ford or Nick Shayla traveling ahead of him or with him, I had security for the Research and Engineering Center. I had cards and things. So he would sit down there. God love him. And he'd take an old-time oven timer, like the thing you crank around, and he'd crank it to an hour, and he'd set it down. He'd say, and then he'd look down, there'd be like 30 people there on this big long table, and he'd go, you, start. And then you talk. And then let's say you got around about to there, then the oven timer go off, and he goes, well, it's all the time I have. We'll try to be a little quicker next week, next month, all right? And he'd get up and walk out, and I go, I love this guy. And so the next time I was there, and he cranked that thing, set down, so people would start getting off track, and other people would, hey, move it along. So he knew how to run a meeting. So I am security. I'm working security. Everybody hates security. So right after 9/11, I implemented some things that I wanted to do before. Oh, do we really have to do that? And so I did. And let's say I did a dozen things. One didn't work out so well. And it delayed, on the checkpoints coming in, it delayed the engineers getting to their jobs. So I'm in there, and I know that there's going to be flack on this. So some guy gets out there and starts whining. Well, sir, the engineers are getting held up at the gate, and they're getting to their desk 5 minutes late. Well, that many engineers 5 minutes late, that's a lot of time. Well, who's responsible for this? I said, down here, sir. Bill, is this your fault? I said, yes, sir, it is. What's going on with it? Did you correct it? Said, yes, sir, I did. I implemented about a dozen changes. All went well, this one not so much. What have you done? I've changed it. Is it working now? It's working now. But it's on you. Sir, it's all me. And all these back up. He leans back and he goes, thank you. He says, you know how much time I spend trying to figure out who's at fault when these problems come up so we can get to the bottom of it? He says, and Bill, and you readily admitted it, and I says, and thank you for that, for standing up and owning up to it. He said, that's what we need. We need more of that. And they're all like, hey, I fucked up too. But yeah, it was coming from the paramilitary, coming from the military to the paramilitary, the Secret Service. That was a pretty easy slide in. Going from that to the corporate America, that was tough. It was tough because there's no sense of urgency. They're more the mission men and me, and I think we got a mission. I'm not sure what it is. Man, fuck them. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. Yeah. So I'd go toe to toe with them. And when they started downsizing, and they called me in to give me a package, I was jumping for joy inside.
Yeah. Was there any part of that job that was enjoyable coming from those?
Initially, yeah. Bill Ford was a pretty good guy. Nick Shayla was an excellent guy, Brit. He was a president. He was chairman of the board, president. And the travel, and everywhere he traveled, was first class. Yeah. And the guys, most of the guys, not all, that I worked with were super. And my guards that I had like 50 guys. They were all union. And we got along famously. Like they'd come in, the committeeman and the president would come in and say, hey, boss, can you? I said, yeah, have a sit down. So the first time I was there, just took over. So we're talking and we're trying to get this thing hashed out. And all of a sudden, I look up, it's 5 o'clock. I say, hey, guys, 5 o'clock. They go, oh, we'll come back tomorrow. I said, no. Let's go get a beer. So we went and we got a beer And about a half an hour, 45 minutes later, it was all worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can only imagine the challenge going from special operations in Vietnam to Secret Service for a storied career, and then sliding into corporate America, the headaches and culture shock that would exist.
It was a culture shock. I think it was a big thing. And they paid me handsomely, but it was no fun.
Yeah. How long did you do that?
About 4 years.
4 years. Once you accepted the package and catapulted out of there, did you retire at that point?
I went back to the Quad Cities and I started doing consulting work, different things, so personal protection. When Obama announced in 2008, I was hired gun. I went down to Springfield, Illinois to work as a detail when he announced, prior to the Secret Service thing.
Yeah.
Different things like this, guys would call up, hey, are you available to do this? This particular company is having an event. Can you do this? And I did that, and it was just enough that I could turn down what I didn't like.
Yeah. And have you been doing that since, basically? I mean, there was the 2008 kind of internal scenario, or not scenario, but internal struggle that you went through with unpacking the Vietnam stuff. But aside from that, from 2008 all the way to present day, have you been doing kind of a mixed bag of that same type of stuff?
I don't do the protection anymore because it's a younger man's game. But I still am, at this moment in time, a special investigator for the Secret Service part-time.
Oh, okay.
Backgrounds, and I drive up to Chicago or Springfield, sit on panel interviews for new hires, write them up, recruiting. But again, part-time. And I can say, hey, I'm going to our place in Florida. I'm going to take a couple months off. Yeah, well, call us when you get back.
Yeah.
But even that, is coming to an end.
Yeah. Seeing a lot of the incoming crop to the Secret Service nowadays doing backgrounds and interviews, what is your take on the caliber of most of the individuals trying to become agents now compared to when you were first there?
Chicago, let me talk about Chicago. Chicago and Springfield both. They held the line. There was nobody they might try to intimidate, hey, we got a female or a minority or somebody coming in, we're really looking to you to hire them. If they didn't do well on the interview and they were, that stayed. There was no calling up and changing it. And, I'm down here on that podium, but my boss, I heard him on the phone once, no, we're not going to revisit it. No, it stands. It stands the way that you can do what you want there in D.C., but we're not doing it. So they were holding the line well. So what we did bring on board, no, they're not the caliber that you and I used to know of, got your degree, out of college and then was a police officer, or hell, I don't care if you sold shoes, or a military background. You're not getting that wealth of experience. But what you are getting, and you have to adapt to the times of these young people that are coming out, is you are getting a pretty good caliber of that. And I've noticed that those people that don't have any hard work experience, if they've been involved in athletics, maybe played ball or played intramural ball or did something other than just go to school and study, worked part-time to get themselves through college. And they got out there and they just weren't a perfume prince that had everything given to them, and mommy and daddy wrote checks and got them out. Those are the ones, when we ask them scenario-type questions, that had real-life experiences to give us. And that's what you go by. You're going to get a scenario that, tell us about a time when. And then you have to draw on your life to do that. Now, for you and I mean, oh God, which one do I pick?
Yeah.
But for some of these people, I've really had people go, I've never had that experience. Oh, look at the time.
Like what kind of tell me a time when question are you asking them?
It's about character. It's about doing the right thing. It's about standing up. And so the group's going this way, but it's the wrong way. And you're in this group, and you need to get the group back on track. But how did that happen? What did you do to get this? And things of this nature.
Yeah.
And I can't really talk about more about it.
Yeah. Do you want to give the answers to the test?
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, Bill, it's been just an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you come sit and spend the time and tell us about your career and share all of your stories. I know you have a million more. I could unpack them for days. But is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, I think the biggest part is if this can help any veteran anywhere, then it was worth my trip here to sit and talk to you. You're a very good interviewer, I might add.
Oh, I appreciate
I really, it was tough coming home. And I had things wrong with me. I had anger, but I didn't know I had anger. And I didn't really have anybody to talk to deeply about it. So I did a lot of drinking and the other things that come along with drinking.
Yeah.
And now it's a better place for these guys that are coming home. But what confounds me is this suicide. What is going on in their minds? And I'm not saying anybody has the right to take their lives, but the guys that came home from Vietnam being treated like borderline criminals and mass murderers, those guys, I would say, understand a lot more than what's going on now. I don't have any insight into that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had so many different guests on that we've talked about this, and I've known guys who have taken their own lives from kind of the current generation of military veterans, a number of them. And admittedly, like I don't understand it. I've never had doubts, questions, thoughts of that whatsoever. I mean, and not even close. Like that prospect has never entered my mind, and I continue to be baffled by it. However, I would say that and all the people that I've talked to and trying to get my arms around it and understand, okay, I don't understand it. How can I try better to understand it to, ideally help combat it? Is that I think, when a lot of these guys get to a point where their entire adult lives, they have been someone who's been contributing to helping, saving, protecting. They've been net positive members of society. Their identity tends to be wrapped into that brand and that persona of, especially with special operations, but military wide, is that there's an identity there. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a persona. It's really who you are. And when you remove that, and then it starts to go downhill, it avalanches and continues to go. And I think a lot of these guys get to the point where they feel like they've become the issues that they're experiencing and the struggles that they have become such a burden to the people that they love that it's like a final act of selflessness, of saying, like, I'm tired of being, a burden to you, and I'm gonna take my own life to remove that from you. And I think that's the gist of it, and it's heartbreaking. Because, a lot of times you hear, it kind of gets me a little emotional even talking about it because I've known guys. But, I think a lot of times it gets talked about as being selfish. Is that, hey, like when people commit suicide, it's like such a cowardly, selfish act. And, and while everybody is welcome to their opinion, like I can't imagine any of the people who have done it have been doing it out of selfishness. It's the opposite. It's selflessness, because they don't, like, they see the impact that they're having on loved ones and family members and feel like, God, this guy's calling again, or he showed up again and he needs money or a couch to sleep on or whatever. And like he's wearing the people that he loves the most out, and they're tired of doing it. I think that's what it is. Now, how do you combat that and reframe that perspective or get them to reframe that perspective internally? I think is being a better friend, a better uncle, a better nephew, a spouse, whatever is don't let them feel like they're a burden if you really want to help them, because I really do think that's my theory on the biggest reason why you see so much of it.
What a waste.
It is. I mean, it's heartbreaking. Like I said, I can't imagine ever being in that position, no matter how bad things have ever been or felt or whatever. that's just never presented itself as an option in my mind, But anyway, amazing interview. One of my favorites, no doubt about it.
Oh, thank you.
An absolute honor to sit here with you. I do have
I surely didn't appreciate
parting
it.
gifts, a couple of them. So first, I'll just give you the bag because there's another thing in there. And then these two. So there's one that's specific to this platform, and then one that covers your background too.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah. So if you find yourself in a pair of shit kickers, and
I do have the shit kicker.
There you go.
I do not have the buckle.
Yeah. Well, now you got a couple options.
And now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So going back to the unit, you got one covered for each. So if you do a Green Beret event, you got something to sport. If you are just out and about and want to look sharp and represent the brand, then you're covered there too. So.
Oh, this is going on the shelf. Is that right? Did not do it. Yes.
You got true to that stay.
Beautiful. And let me reciprocate with this is my personal challenge.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And
Amazing.
I don't give a lot of them out, but I want you to have one. And this one is kind of a bonus. This is the Special Operations Association of the U.S. Secret Service, the Counter Assault Team,
Amazing.
the Counter Sniper Team, and the Emergency Response Team, all Special Operations of the Secret Service. That is extremely rare. There's only 100 of them out there right now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, these are going right up on the coin presentation
Right.
holder there, and again, I can't thank you enough. It's been amazing to be able to meet you and talk to you, and you have a remarkable story. And
I'll get the word out.
yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Anything you want to say to the viewers before we give them the middle finger?
The Mills look. No, just it's best to talk about it. It's best. I kept it inside me for decades, and once I let it out, it was cathartic, and I highly recommend. And again, if you don't want to talk about it, sit down and write about it.
Yeah, amen. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. To the listener and viewer, this has been one of my favorites. Absolutely American treasure sitting here with us. Honored to have him. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. Truly appreciate the support. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.